I mean, what's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
Hey, as a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stones.
Am I going to get sued?
Is that legal on this?
I like football, I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live here on a Monday morning. Time to review all things Week 12 in the NFL, which went all the way back to Thanksgiving, Sam. We're going to touch on those Thursday games as well.
Yeah, it's been a long week of football so far, and it's only Monday morning.
It has. Our meme guy sent us the meme about Thanksgiving being, socially acceptable to just, invite people over, not talk to them, watch football all day.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Actually got criticized for that by my wife.
Huh.
She was like, you just sat there and watched football all day, didn't talk to our guests. Mm-hmm. I said, well, you're not lying.
Well, that's why you don't have guests. It's easier.
That was a good job not having guests by you.
Yeah.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving, though?
Yeah, it was all right. We did steak. I was going to try and find a chicken, right? Because there's only 3 of us. So a turkey feels silly, even given the tradition.
Yeah.
So I was like, I go get a chicken. There were no chickens in Kroger or Jungle Gyms. No chickens in the entire stores.
No chickens.
So I was like, okay, I could do a goose, a duck, or what the hell? Let's just get some steaks.
Just got some steaks.
So I just did steaks, and then I did the Yorkshire puddings, and they worked this time. So it was a success.
Good work. I'm proud of you. All right. You ready to go?
Yeah.
We're going to go through all the games. We're going to touch on those Thursday games. They were a while ago. Forgive us if we don't remember. But we have to touch on them because we didn't review them specifically. So it all started with the Packers and the Lions. Packers 29, Lions 22. Remember, this was a touchdown or so spread for the Lions.
The other way, yeah.
Yeah, for the Lions. The other 2 favorites covered. But the Packers, man, played a great game. In particular, Jordan Love, another week where he's playing his best ball. And not just his best game, Jordan Love, but, just like he was feeling it, man. He was on fire when they needed him, in structure, outside of structure. Jordan Love playing a great game on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and the accuracy. Like, the one thing that Jordan Love has had a problem with all season long is basic ball location. I mean, he was absolutely on the money in this game. Forget, the completion rate stuff. I mean, 69% essentially completion rate, 82% adjusted completion rate. But, the ball location on some of these passes was insane. And he was getting extra yards after the catch because he put the ball exactly where he needed it to be. It just seemed like all the way through the game, this was the ceiling of Jordan Love. This is what he can be in the NFL if you take away all of his flaws. So between that side of the ball, that was happening. Jordan Love was just having the game of his life against a good Detroit Lions defense. And then the other side of the ball, Green Bay's pass rush was annihilating one of the better offensive lines in the NFL and just putting Jared Goff under constant pressure. I mean, this game made no sense. Neither of these things were supposed to happen.
Rashawn Gary with an incredible game, 3 sacks, I think. I have no plays on. But a 90-plus pass rush grade. Devontae Wyatt had a really good game. Kenny Clark had a huge game for Green Bay. I mean, I came away watching that game thinking, okay, this Packers team can compete with anybody.
Yeah.
Because they just took out one of the best teams in the NFC, the Lions. If Jordan Love stays sharp, you have the Christian Watson post-Thanksgiving breakout here that you highlighted to me. The man can only play Thanksgiving or later, much like last year where he became an elite deep threat and touchdown creator. So you've got the receivers who are young and inexperienced and never in the right spot and dropping key passes. They're playing well. Love's playing well. The defense is flying around making plays, rushing the passer. This was a complete game by the Packers, the best game that they've played all year. And I came away thinking, okay, they've got the Chiefs next week on Sunday Night Football. If they play like that again, they could pull the upset against Kansas City. They can win some games here down the stretch.
And they're only a game back from Minnesota. I mean, we were talking up last week before they dropped a game. The Vikings could upset Detroit, right? They were only a game back. They've got 2 games against the Lions. Maybe the Vikings could actually win that division. I mean, Green Bay is only a game behind Minnesota in this chaotic NFC playoff picture. We kind of wrote them off earlier because they were so bad at the start of the season and making mistakes, and every game kind of looked the same. But if they play like that, Green Bay could make the playoffs. And with such a young group of playmakers, like that group could get significantly better over the course of the year, and it makes sense as opposed to why is this team playing better in the second half than the first half?
I'm going to do a lot of standings recapping because it's that time of year, Sam. We're past Thanksgiving. The Packers, as of right now, 5-6, tied with the Rams and the Saints record-wise, but they have the tiebreaker over both teams. They're the number 8 seed in the NFC, so they're a game behind Minnesota in that division, but also a game behind Seattle. We'll talk about Seattle here in a minute, but Seattle's next 3 games we talked about, they're going to be touchdown underdogs probably as they play Dallas and the Niners again and I think Philly. So Seattle is facing a tough stretch. Again, I don't know if the Packers can bottle this up and bring it every single week, but if they can, they're making they're making a run here down the stretch. For Detroit, another just a weird game in their season, right, where they just don't show up relative to what they've done. Jared Goff was our highest graded quarterback as of 2 weeks ago. And then the turnovers just hit against the Bears.
Back-to-back stinkers.
Yeah, back-to-back. No, against the Bears, tons of turnovers. He had the 3 interceptions. But they came back in the fourth quarter. But, he kept putting the ball on the turf again in this one with the Packers. That's one thing they have to iron out here with the extra rest.
Yeah, the 2 worst games of his season so far, back-to-back 3 turnover-worthy played games. He hadn't had a game with more than 2 before that. Just a nightmare game for him. And a lot of that in this game was pressure. I mean, the amount of pressure that Green Bay was able to get in this game was kind of crazy. In particular, like Taylor Decker was just getting his ass handed to him repeatedly by Rashawn Gary.
By Rashawn Gary. I had mentioned Rashawn Gary against Panay Sewell.
52% of the time Goff was under pressure in this game.
Yeah, that was insane. How good the Packers pass rush was. So again, so impressed with what Green Bay did. 29-22 win. They held it off at the end. Jordan Love played really well. Christian Watson, who I mentioned, he had a 53-yarder in there, 5 catches for 94 yards and a score. So yeah, just a really good all-around game from Green Bay, despite all their injuries, right? They had half their team on the injury report. That's, I was hedging in the preview. I'm like, it doesn't look good on paper that Green Bay will have nobody available to play, but you just never know. Sometimes teams rally behind all of their injured players, and the Packers absolutely did. Yeah,
Decker actually ends up with a grade that wasn't terrible. Got beaten badly a couple of times. Panay Sewell got beaten a few times. The real catastrophes happened on the interior, though. The trio of interior offensive linemen, Graham Glasgow, Swordstill, those guys gave up a collection between 3 of them because there was an injury of, 16, 17, 18 total pressures among 3 players. That's not good.
Yeah, tough to predict, man, that the Lions' offensive line is going to look that bad. But, again, kudos. Give them their credit, the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, this was a great game. Nobody necessarily saw it coming, but it changes their season all of a sudden. They went from, a season that was looking horrific. They lost a bunch on the bounce. What was that? 4 losses in the middle, 1 to the Lions, then the Raiders, Broncos, Vikings, and then now they've won 3 of the last 4, the last 2 of which have been pretty impressive.
All right, Lions go play the Saints next week in Nolans, and as I mentioned, the Packers on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. We'll see if they can replicate that outing. As a parent, you've had to learn so many new skills to provide for your family: how to do copious amounts of laundry, meal plan for even the pickiest eater, and now how to protect your family's financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life provides an easy one-stop shop for your family's financial needs, offering high-quality term life insurance policies plus other financial solutions in one easy online hub. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule, so you can go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, man, the rest of the games, the last 2 games on Thanksgiving, the favorite did win pretty handily. Cowboys beat the Washington Commanders 45-10. Cowboys move to 8-3. Commanders fall to 4-8. Another elite performance by Dak Prescott, one of the best performances we've ever graded here at PFF, dating back to 2006. Brandon Cooks with another huge game at receiver. And, man, the Cowboys continuing to look complete and continuing to dominate the games that they're supposed to dominate.
Yeah, and it's crazy how much they're able to put the foot on the gas late as well. I mean, it wasn't as bad a blowout as it looked, but then once the pick six happened, right, Dallas just absolutely put their foot on Washington's throat and stomped them. The pick six, by the way, 5 now. 5 pick sixes by Deron Bland.
Yes.
He has 1 fewer touchdown this season than CeeDee Lamb, who's like the offense.
All of the stats behind Deron Bland having 5 pick sixes, more touchdowns than anybody on several teams or several receiving cores or whatever it might be, are just incredible.
Right. And it lost up or sort of wrapped up in all that is like the rest of his season is pretty crazy as well. It's not like, remember when Trayvon Diggs had the 11 interception season, but the underlying numbers were actually pretty bad. It's just that offsetting those underlying numbers, you had 11 interceptions, right? So passer rating against looked quite good, and EPA per play, that's essentially passer rating adjusted for situation, et cetera. Like all those numbers were great because he had interceptions, but he was giving up 1,000 yards. Deron Bland's coverage numbers are actually pretty good across the board. Obviously, the coverage number, the passer rating allowed number rather, is low because he has 5 interceptions. Now, 7 interceptions rather, 5 of which have gone back for a touchdown. The fact that they've gone back for a touchdown doesn't change that number, which probably should. Like, not only is he catching the ball.
This is where you're fighting for EPA.
Yeah, he's actually scoring on those plays. And in this one in particular, like some pick sixes are just you get in front of the ball, you have an angle for the end zone, all you got to do is run a straight line and you score. This one, he had to juke 2 people out of their shoes to get there. Like when he caught the ball, I didn't think there was any chance he was scoring on that play.
Nance on the call, right?
I forget. Yeah.
I think it was Nance on the call. He did a great job. He was saying this one's for the record.
Right.
In the middle of the call. I had seen that one time. It was in a college game. I think it was Iowa. It was Sean McDonough who was like giving the history of whoever picked the pass off in the middle of the play. And I was like, that's incredible. He's like, there's an interception. It's this guy's career, blah, 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 blah. He's going through the whole thing. I was like, that's an incredible call. And Nance kind of nailed that one because it's like, here's the interception. Oh, it's Deron Bland. Oh, this is for the pick six record. And then he cuts back and sees like that cutback was incredible. I mean, Bland creating plays like that.
He beat 2 people that I didn't expect him to beat on that return to get that into the end zone. Anyway, so he's given up a passer rating of 36.9. But he's only given up 52% of passes thrown his way have been caught. They're only going for 11 yards. He's given up 350 yards. He hasn't been beaten for a pass longer than 30 yards all season. Like, his coverage numbers across the board are insane. His coverage grade, which was never that high with Trayvon Diggs, even in his 11 interception season, is 91.2. And he's only starting because Diggs isn't out there. Like, he's only in the lineup because the guy ahead of him got hurt. Okay, he was playing but not starting before that happened. Bland is genuinely having an insane season in which he has already broken the record for most pick sixes in a season, and we're at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable, man. A great find for the Cowboys in the 5th round last year. Had an excellent season his last year in college, and played well last year, and has stepped up with Trevon Diggs injured. Coming into the season, I was of the mind that Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks were 2 of the most important offseason additions. I still believe, what Stephon Gilmore has done to that defense as well, because he doesn't, he gets targeted about the same amount as Deron Bland, but he's having a very good season too. We would be talking a little bit about Stephon Gilmore being this shrewd move by the Cowboys if Bland wasn't completely overshadowing him
Yeah,
at this
particularly
point.
coming out of that game. I mean, he had a good game against Washington, made a couple of key plays, broke up a pass intended for Terry McLaurin. That was an impressive performance, one of his better games of the year for Gilmore. And yet, you're right. It's like, yeah, that's nice, but look at the guy with 5 pick sixes.
So this is why that cornerback 2 spot was so important for Dallas, right? We thought it was going to be, it's going to be Diggs and Gilmore, because now it pairs with this incredible pass rush that puts so much heat on opposing quarterbacks. And now on the other side, you have Brandon Cooks finally looking like old Brandon Cooks these last few weeks, gets behind the defense a couple more times. And Dallas just laid it on, man. Kevontae Turpin getting behind the defense. Dak throwing the ball up the seam. I don't remember him throwing so many seam passes as he has this year. Usually, I highlighted it last week, in the red zone, hitting his tight ends up the seam in like the high red zone. But he was doing it in this game, whether it was tight ends, receivers, it was Cooks on one. Dak is just feeling it right now. So he's absolutely throwing his name in the MVP conversation and all that fun stuff. But it's just an interesting MVP case because Dak is he did play well against the Eagles, but the Cowboys have not beaten a good team really. And, he's kind of loading up. And when you say most valuable player, it's like Dak is a part of these thrashings, whereas we mentioned they have a corner on the team with 5 defensive touchdowns. It's not just Dak and the offense leading this high-scoring attack.
It was Nance and Romo on the broadcast, and the way I know that is because I remember Tony Romo was putting Tyler Smith in the Hall of Fame. He's like, this offensive line's got 3 future Hall of Famers on it. Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, and then Tyler Smith is on that Hall of Fame track. We're like, dude, it's halfway through year 2. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit on that. I mean, he's playing fantastically this year. Now, that being said, this game in particular, he had a pass blocking grade of 49. But, year 2 is insane to put any offensive lineman in the Hall of Fame. Quentin Nelson was, the greatest offensive lineman the game has ever seen through a year and a half of his NFL career. Now the guy's playing slightly above average as a guard.
Oh, man.
3 future Hall of Famers.
You just want to take a chance, any opportunity to trash Tony.
I'm just, sometimes it's like, does your team bias ever show up during your broadcast, And I'm sure Troy and Tony and these other guys, they go to great lengths to make sure that they're right down the middle. And then sometimes something like this pops up and you're like, there it was. Yeah.
I don't think it's team bias as much as word salad.
That's
he said 3 and then he tried to. Let's not get into it. I can't remember the timing here. Did Jack Del Rio, defensive coordinator for the Commanders, did he get fired before or after this game?
I think it was after, right?
Yeah.
It was off the back of this.
Thanksgiving weekend, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's a work week. It's a work week for them.
It's different when they're all rich. They're all rich. They're all getting payoffs. Nobody cares.
Sweet. Commanders fall to 4-8. Cowboys up to 8-3. We are on pace for you like the funniest possible things.
Yeah.
Right. So it's time. It's time for me to break down playoff scenarios and break down where we are. If the playoffs were to start today, the Cowboys would be the number 5 seed going to Atlanta, the current leader in the NFC South.
So one of the things I tweeted, which some people were upset by, was if Dallas can simply avoid playing good teams, they'll win the Super Bowl by 35 points. And I said this, by the way, when the game was quite close, and then it became a 35-point margin of victory, which makes it even better. But there is a scenario where that can happen. If they could just avoid the good teams in the NFC, they're laughing. The step 1 of which starts with playing Atlanta in the playoffs.
They need the Rams to sneak in.
Yes. So they need
sneak in as the 7 seed and upset the Niners or something.
Their pathway involves starting by beating Atlanta. They then need another crappy team to go in there and beat, Philadelphia, the 49ers, etc., so that they can go on their run. It's doable.
It's doable, huh? On pace to maybe see the Eagles in the second round as of right now.
That might not go great.
All right, the nightcap on Thanksgiving. San Francisco 49ers 31, Seattle Seahawks 13, and Chris Collinsworth $800
a fish.
That is the other key stat from this game.
We really need to get him on and explain. I'm less interested about the mistake. I think we got that covered on the broadcast, He thought $34.99 was the price of the fish, not the price of a pound of the fish, and accidentally bought $800 worth of it, right? And, I get if you and I were confronted in that situation, right? Once the figure of $800 was presented, we would be like, I don't care how embarrassing this is. I'm going to have to say, sorry, I've goofed.
I'm going to walk away.
Right. Whereas when you've got that kind of money, you're like, oh, okay, fine. I'm taking $800 worth of fish back. I'm more interested in the cross-country flight with $800 worth of fish and how bad that plane must have been for other people.
It's got the dry ice and everything, right? It's probably secure in the cooler.
I'm sure it is. I still don't know that it's airtight. I feel like you would know, you know? Like, I get kind of annoyed when a guy on the plane in close proximity brings on, like, a full pizza or, you know, like a fried chicken meal or something that's, like, something that smells. Like, I'm sitting here for 3 hours and you've brought on, like, a Thanksgiving dinner next to you. This is impolite, a failure of plane writing etiquette. And he's over there bringing $800 worth of salmon on the plane. Now, look, it's a nicer plane. I'm sure there's, you know, somewhere to stash it. Still, I think there's a story there that involves that deserves exploration.
Then you bring that home and you grab about, you know, $50 worth of the fish, cook that up, and then you got the rest of it, you throw that in the freezer. And you got it for a year. You're good. Got a lot of fish. That was great. Niners 31. Seahawks 13, just to reset again. Brock Purdy with another solid game there. The defense for the 49ers really did a nice job against Seattle's offense. Christian McCaffrey with a big game, 19 carries for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. It felt like McCaffrey was getting 4, 5, 6 yards every single time he touched the ball and did a really nice job in the red zone, finding ways to get. I mean, one of his touchdowns, we talk a lot about how it's all about the run blocking. But he got into the end zone on a play that should have been, basically a tackle for loss. He finds his way into the end zone for an 8-yard run. But just once again, it's San Francisco. All of their playmakers. This was a Deebo Samuel game as well, where he has a rushing touchdown, 7 catches for 79 yards. You just never know on a weekly basis. George Kittle had a few big weeks. I didn't really need him in this game. 3 catches for 19. Doesn't matter because who are you going to cover? It's a challenge facing this Niners team every week.
Yeah, they pretty much dominated Seattle, certainly in the first half. Then the Seahawks got that pick 6, right, which made it a bit close for a while, and then they eased away again. I feel like at some point, so as great as it is that Jason Peters is playing football, which means we are younger than the oldest player in the NFL right now, I feel like at some point we're getting close to, like, abuse of the elderly. Why is he playing? I mean, I understand why he's playing right tackle, but asking the man to play right tackle as the oldest player in the NFL when he's a career left tackle is harsh. I mean, remember the O-line Twitter guys lost their minds when Donald Penn was asked to switch to the right side after a career of playing left tackle and then immediately, like, popped something in his ankle or his Achilles or something. They're like, see, can't do that to the guy. Like 330 pounds worth of muscle memory is all geared to going left, and suddenly you're asking it to go right. Things snap. That's just the way it works. Poor old Jason Peters is out there trying to play right tackle, going up against, like, Nick Bosa. And you're like, come on. Like, how's that supposed to work?
Yeah, it's not fair.
No, it's not.
It's not right. It did not go well for the Seahawks offensive line. And honestly, we highlighted on the preview show, their interior had not played well. And, left tackle Charles Cross, I think he's kind of rounding into form from a pass pro standpoint in his second year. He was very good coming out of Mississippi State. He was the one guy with a good grade on that offensive line. Everyone else struggled because, again, Jason Peters is older than us. And Stone Forsythe, he'd been having a decent season. But when you go up against this Niners front, it's a challenge, man. They're coming at you with all different personnel, and they're rolling 8 deep, and they're really good. And again, I don't think it's like the Chase Young factor or anything like that, but you just added him to the mix a few weeks ago.
It's not hurting.
Yeah, it's certainly not hurting because it gives guys a break. He's good, and just adds to the list of guys that are difficult to block.
They're moving them around as well. They've also got Randy Gregory out there as well.
Yeah,
like
they've added Randy Gregory and Chase Young in the middle of this season.
And, Javon Hargrave in the offseason. Javon Kinlaw is actually playing well for the first time in his NFL career. Like, that defensive front is nasty. They're moving them around as well. There was a couple of plays where they had Chase Young and Nick Bosa stood up in the B gaps, and then the edge rushers were Hargrave and Armstead. So you had the big bodies on the outside, and the small guys on the inside stood up, ready to attack the A or the B gap. It's like that's a problem. Like trying to deal with that. Not only have you got 4 good players, but they can line up anywhere in front of you. You could be facing any variety of body type from, sort of traditional edge rusher speed in Chase Young to like giant, long Eric Armstead to big interior, like defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, more of a nose tackle shaped individual, anywhere along that offensive line. I mean, that's a nightmare.
Yes, and I think that's a great way to build a defensive line with all those different body types. Brock Purdy these last 3 weeks, I think these last 3 weeks are what a Brock Purdy defender or someone who thought, hey, this dude's elite, just give him all of his credit. I think this is what maybe they saw over the entire course of his career. I feel like these last 3 weeks, the best stretch of Purdy's career, it's all coming off the bye. It was all coming off that 3-game stretch where things didn't go as well. That game in Cleveland where Purdy played the worst game of his career. The Monday night game against the Vikings where he had the fourth quarter interceptions. The Bengals game where the Niners got beat down. The Niners went to a bye. We did mention it coincided with Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams coming back. But these last 3 weeks, Purdy is playing the type of football that maybe people thought he was playing for a while. So that puts the production still really high. But you saw, you mentioned like the pick six. It's like a little overthrow over the middle of the field. Kind of unlucky that it became a pick six. I don't know. There was a bit of a crowd. So kind of one bad throw in there for Purdy. But the way he's going through his progressions, getting to his second read when necessary, then he throws that pass to Brandon Ayuk, which is an absolute dime in the middle of 4 defenders to create a touchdown late in the game. Purdy's playing great ball right now, in addition to all of the playmakers, as I mentioned, playing at their height of their ability, and that's why the Niners are so tough to stop.
Was it confirmed that the Seahawks actually benched Reek Woolen? Because it seemed like that happened, but has it been subsequently confirmed that it was an actual benching as opposed to, there was an injury or before
I don't know. You had texted it to me or mentioned it to me. I never.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely on the sideline not playing whilst other people were, but that doesn't necessarily mean, they were like, I've seen enough of this shit. Take your seat in the bench while somebody else goes in there. Ages ago we talked about Tariq Woolen has this tendency to, instead of tackle, to just throw himself at players and hope that takes them down. He had some rough reps in this game, but also before that. And it does seem like they've kind of gotten sick of that and said, look, tackle a guy. Don't just hit him. His coverage hasn't been particularly good this year either. Meanwhile, Devin Witherspoon, he gave up the touchdown to Brandon Ayuk. He also made a spectacular pass breakup in, cover 3. Now, it's one of those plays where you can question, did he make his own life more difficult by tracking the first guy too far, and then by the time he had to make the adjustment was harder than it needed to be had he simply fallen off it earlier. And
he was matching his guy, right? That wasn't his zone, I don't think.
Yeah, but I think it was his zone in the end of it. But like, if he comes off that sooner, if he reads it earlier, which is usually his, prime strength, if he does see it earlier and come off earlier, it's a less severe adjustment that he needs to make. Now, the adjustment that he makes is spectacular, perfect, and he gets a little bit of luck by when he puts his hand up, it literally hits it in the bank of the hand. Anyway, it was an incredible play, spectacular play, shows the sort of full range of Devin Witherspoon's skills, which is reading a play, understanding exactly the angle he needs to take and where to get to in order to make that happen, and then gets a pass breakup on what should have been like a walk-in, wide-open touchdown for Brandon Ayuk before his touchdown. You've got the rookie Devin Witherspoon doing that, and then what should have been his partner in crime on the other side, Reek Woolen, not backing up that spectacular rookie season.
All right, so Niners move to 8-3. They're heading for a collision course, Sam, with the Eagles next week. So not only look at the stretch that the Eagles are in that we highlighted a few weeks ago. Played the Chiefs on Monday night, had that game against the Bills yesterday. They've got the 49ers next week. And not the 49ers from 4 weeks ago who looked like, they're regressing a little bit. This is peak 49ers. It's going to be an awesome game next week in that 4 o'clock window. But Niners 8-3. And as I mentioned earlier, Seahawks fall to 6-5, and 3 more difficult games coming up. Could be a rough stretch here for Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, this is the 49ers-Eagles is what everybody expects to be an NFC Championship rematch and preview.
Yeah. So hopefully Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt, and we don't have Christian McCaffrey taking direct snaps the whole time. And
yeah, normally I'm in favor of that, but having seen it go the first time, I'm less keen now.
Who came in? Josh Johnson for him last year?
Yeah, and lasted very short period of time.
Let's hope that doesn't happen again. All right, let's talk Black Friday.
Okay.
Not sales, but the first ever Black Friday NFL football game. We'll touch on this one quickly, Sam.
We need to get to the Eagles-Bills game. Like, forget the rest of these games.
We have to go.
It's like an hour-long show just on that game.
We have to go quicker through these games. This one's going to be quick because there was Dolphins 34, Jets 13.
Yeah.
Jets started Tim Boyle. Offense still had some issues. There was a pick 6 on a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
This was a challenging day for me as well, right? You know, you're talking to the wife about, hey, you know, there's a Friday game now. Middle of the day. You know, we just bought our Christmas tree. We're trying to set it up and do all this stuff. So I'm trying to be like in and out, you know, catch the big plays. And, you know, I got people in the other room being like, I'm like, oh, there's a Hail Mary. I can miss this.
Right.
You know, let me go. I've got an 18-minute window here between Hail Mary and halftime. And I got people in the other room being like, nope, it's a pick 6 on a Hail Mary. And it's like, all right, I mean, really just the entire last 2 minutes of the first half. Tua throws a pick, and there's a Hail Mary pick. I mean, the whole thing was a mess.
Yeah, I mean, it threatened, like, it's like, okay, the Tim Boyle era isn't looking much different to the Zach Wilson era. Again, the only way this goes south for Miami is if Tua goes Josh Allen and just gives the game back to the Jets.
Done.
Right. He took a shot at it, and then it's like, oh, look, the interception sets them up. Now it's a Hail Mary attempt. You're like, oh, wow. He threw it right to Holland. Like, you watch this sort of play develop, there's like a giant gap in the middle where Holland is. He threw it right to him. Now, normally you expect players to come in from the side and contest it and break it up, and it never gets any further than that. And that didn't happen, really. So Holland just catches it, and then once he's clear of that, like, the huddle in the end zone, now it's like the only people left are offensive linemen and Tim Boyle.
Yeah.
And he, you know, obviously got past the offensive lineman, evaded Tim Boyle, and then it's like, uh-oh. Now, the only way that could have been prevented is if Boyle had stopped or slowed him down, even just showed him to the other side, made him beat him inside, and then Garrett Wilson might have gotten back to stop him. But, like, great play by Holland. I mean, not even, you just have to say unlucky, I guess, from Tim Boyle's point of view. He put it in the end zone more or less where he should have put it. It's not supposed to happen.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one of those where all the EPA is going to be horrendous, and you know, QBR and every other stat is going to be horrendous, I think, because of the result. And it's like, it's a Hail Mary. And, I mean, overall, it's unlucky for him that, it became a pick 6, an incredible play by Javon Holland. So I've never seen any. Have you seen anything like that? I've never seen a Hail Mary.
No, it's like it's the play that, you know, hyper-conservative dinosaur-type coaches are always terrified of, but never happens. You know, it's like, oh, you don't run a play when, like, because they could fumble, and then, you know, it's the nightmare worst-case scenario that they're like, you can't take this shot.
I mean, I understand the worry about the fumble. I understand, you know, you got a guy buying time. He could fumble. You could have a fumble 6. Kind of understand.
Yeah,
if
but
you're
it's
too far away, you don't want to do that.
But it's the classic worst-case scenario that never actually happens, only it happened. Like, the Jets got back-to-back interceptions. We're actually close to making a game of this. You're like, let's take a shot at the Hail Mary. We could really make the Dolphins sweat. And then instead it goes the other way, and you're like, all right, that's the game.
So the Dolphins were up 10-0. You mentioned Tua throws a pick 6 to Brandon Eccles. That goes to Jets miss the extra point. It's 10-6. Looks like it's going to be 10-6 going into the half, and it's one of those, hey, the Jets defense is doing it again. They're going to keep this close against a good Miami offense. You get the Hail Mary pick 6 for 99 yards by Javon Holland. Miami's up 17-6 going into the half, and then they pretty much you ran away with it in the second half. Got a field goal. Raheem Mostert had 2 touchdowns, 13-yarder and a 34-yarder. It does feel like this Jets defense is just getting beat down. They're just getting worn down by not being competitive. on the offensive side of the ball.
They're getting frustrated.
Yeah.
Like I've been, very, very different levels, but I've been part of teams where the defense is really good and the offense is really not. And I think I've actually been part of both, where I've been on the offensive side where the offense is a high-scoring offense and the defense is bad, and you're in shootouts every week. And I've been on the defensive side when the defense is really good and the offense is very bad. And I think that's way more frustrating. So essentially I've been on both sides of the ball where your side is good and the opposite is bad on the same team. And it feels like those should be comparable, but actually it's not. It's way, way, way more frustrating to be on a good defense when the offense stinks and you're like, if we give up anything, the game's probably gone. As opposed to there's somehow it feels fine to be like, well, we just keep scoring, we're fine. Doesn't matter that the defense is giving up a touchdown every drive as well. We're fine. So I think, I said this last week, and you scoffed. I feel like it's getting to the Jets' defense. I feel like that's why they got into a rumble in the tunnel last week. You're seeing it. Like, those guys are frustrated. They're making silly mistakes now. They're losing discipline because they're pissed off. They're playing out of their minds, and they know if they make one mistake, the game's gone. Like, they're getting interceptions, and they know if they don't score, it's probably not enough. And they're getting they were making this point at some point during the broadcast. Like, Salah has a real job in his hands now to keep that side of the locker room intact because there's still a month to go, and they're getting really pissed off. And you've no solution. Like, Tim Boyle, Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, none of those guys are going to get anything done. So you have another month of this happening, of your defense playing amazingly and still getting wrecked.
Because everything else is bad, man.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know. I think Aaron Rodgers would make this offensive line look better, for sure. Obviously, he would play better than Zach Wilson or Tim Boyle. But I don't know what Aaron Rodgers would do. If Aaron Rodgers was out there, we might be talking about a 500-ish type of team, much like how the Packers were last year. They might be a 500 team where the offense is still struggling.
Yeah.
Now, I do think Rodgers and Garrett Wilson would have enough of a connection that would save some of the. But the 8 offensive line combinations, the fact that they weren't even good to begin with before they went into third and fourth stringers. That would be a serious issue, even with Rodgers' quicker release and all.
If Rodgers hadn't popped his Achilles after 4 snaps, he probably still would have been hurt already, simply from the offensive line. It's terrible. There was a stat in this game that 48% of the Jets' points this year have come on field goals, which apparently is the highest rate in NFL history.
This is what I was trying to tell you a couple of weeks ago about the kickers got all the points this year.
Apparently, literally at the highest rate ever.
Yeah.
They don't score touchdowns.
You could feel that watching the games.
Yeah.
You could feel that. Not a lot of touchdowns there. All right, so Miami, for a minute there, they were in they're still in number 1 seed contention. They're 8-3. Tua did have a good game, by the way, outside of the pick 6. Couple, fumbled in there, the pick 6. Other than that, really good game for Tua. And the pass game, I thought, for Miami showed the quick-hitting nature of it can slow down the Jets' pass rush. They didn't have a ton of pressures. They did sack Tua a couple times, but there wasn't a ton of pressure coming from this Jets, fierce pass rush in this game. So
and costly game for Miami, though. They lost Jalen Phillips to that popped Achilles.
Oh, jeez, yeah, that was bad. Yeah, Phillips has been.
Which is that the
good.
third Achilles that's been done on that turf this year?
Maybe. I saw some.
It's definitely 2, right?
It was David Bakhtiari may have been retweeting some list of MetLife injuries.
It seems to be universally accepted that turf is horrendous. That being said, I don't quite understand. Maybe we'll ask Vic for the boo-boo breakdown, but I don't quite understand how. I don't understand how turf can make an Achilles snap.
The old Giant Stadium too. They were known for having terrible turf. They used to have seams and stuff that would just rip up during games.
But you watch this play. There's a super slow-mo replay, focusing right in on his leg, and it's like he just pushes off and his Achilles snaps. I don't really understand how the turf can contribute to that.
Find out.
I shall.
All right, we'll get into the Sunday action in a minute, but first, got to tell you about our friends over at AG1. We appreciate people sending pictures of their AG1. It's the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. We drink it every day here on the PFF NFL podcast. Gave it a try because We love having good, healthy drinks to kick off the morning right next to our coffee. That's what I do. Drink the AG1 first thing in the morning. Makes me feel great. Ready to take on the day. Gives my body the nutrients that it craves. Just like all great athletes, they have one thing in common. They take care of their bodies. And a huge part of that starts with optimizing whole body health. A lot of them also drink AG1, and that's why I'm a huge fan. Because with every daily serving, we're setting ourselves up for success with 75 high-quality ingredients that give us the key daily nutrients that support energy, focus, strength, and clarity. I say we because it's podcast-wide, right? It's us, it's our listeners, we're all taking AG1 here. It's this micro habit that delivers macro benefits and helps just about everybody take care of their health every single day. Also love that it costs less than $3 a day. Pretty good if you ask me. It's a really effective daily habit with high-quality sourced ingredients, a win-win for all of us here on the PFF NFL podcast. So if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. So go to drinkag1.com/PFF. That's drinkag, the number 1.com/PFF. Go check it out right now. All right, man, the Sunday action. Let's go Jaguars first again. Somebody said, hey, you went Jags first last week in the Sunday games. I'm doing it again. Jaguars 21. Jags 24, Houston Texans 21. Fun little back and forth game here. Jags move to 8-3. Texans fall to 6-5. There was a lot happening in this game. When watching it, we knew first place was on the line in the AFC South. That the Texans had a chance to sweep the Jags and be tied for first place. It did feel like, hey man, this is going to be a nice battle between Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud going forward. Lawrence with several big-time throws. He finished with 364 passing yards. Just continued to flip the field, man, throwing the ball down the field. One of his best throws was dropped by Calvin Ridley in the end zone, but it was a high-impact game from Lawrence, throwing the ball down the field. And then similar, CJ Stroud on the other side against a tough Jaguars defense. He still threw for 304 and a couple scores, ran for another one. I've got some thoughts on Stroud and the way he played, but what were your takeaways coming out of this one?
Yeah, I think both quarterbacks played spectacularly. I think Tank Dell looked absolutely amazing as well. I mean, he isn't just looking like a great receiver, a great rookie receiver. He might be the best rookie receiver in that class. I mean, nobody else is playing at the kind of level where you're like, Tank Dell is definitively not the best wide receiver from this draft class. Like, in a class where the entire narrative from start to finish was there's no Jamar Chase in this draft class, is Jordan Addison clearly better than Tank Dell? Arguably his two best plays in this game didn't count. Like, he made a bunch of spectacular plays in this game. There's one absurd catch where he contorts his body backwards, cradles it, and then gets his legs taken out in the air and sort of fires back over. But he went and mossed somebody deep down the field on a pass that got negated by an illegal shift penalty. He had a spectacular sideline catch that was like an inch away from being a toe tap reception. Like, his toe comes up just like a frame before the ball settles in his hand.
Incomplete.
Yes, but spectacular sideline play by him. I mean, the touchdown that they scored was another one where him and Stroud are exactly on the same page. He finds a space in the zone. He settles there. He's waiting. Stroud finds him, gets the ball to him. He rides the contact that comes in immediately. I mean, Tank Dell looks spectacular. CJ Stroud looks like he's just settled into being Georgia's CJ Stroud in perpetuity.
That's what I wanted to highlight. I tweeted it yesterday, and it felt like Stroud was not playing from the pocket very often. So I did look it up. He had 19 of his 47 dropbacks were outside the pocket. Now that includes that could be design rollouts, but it's anything that's a design rollout or a scramble drill, basically. That's so 40% of his dropbacks were outside the pocket or some level of not in the pocket, basically. 22% only is where he's at for the season. So almost double of his dropbacks were outside of structure, we'll say, which didn't feel right. Now, he played well. I mean, I thought Stroud played well outside the pocket as well, and he left the pocket usually for good reason.
Yeah.
Like when one of his scramble drill touchdowns was a 3-man rush in the red zone. One of my favorite things that quarterbacks do is when they see a 3-man rush in the tight red zone is don't throw the ball, is when they take their time, because you know it's a 3-man rush. You know that the windows are going to be tight, and you don't throw a pass in rhythm against a drop 8 coverage in the tight red zone. And Stroud did that. And instead what he did is he said, okay, I know I have a 3-man rush. All I'm going to do, if I just avoid these guys, at some point the coverage is going to break down, and it did. I loved that play. There were other plays where he did leave slightly compressed pockets. There were definitely some plays where there was some quick pressure from the interior. Roy Robertson-Harris had some big pressures. Josh Allen had some key pressures in this game. I'm wondering. My little concern here is that Stroud is actually getting too comfortable playing outside of structure, where normally I would say, hey, Stroud's great in rhythm and everything. Now, if we add some of that special magic, that'll complete his game. My concern would be that he plays a little bit too much like that. Like I said, it wasn't bad. He played well. He played fine. But his secret sauce, man, is sitting in the pocket, going through his progressions. And I thought there was a couple plays in this. Normally he would get to his second progression, just move his feet, make a throw, and instead he's getting a little antsy getting out of there. And I think that came back to bite a little bit down the stretch. He took a couple big sacks, and that would just be something I'm keeping an eye on with Stroud, who I still think is fantastic, playing great, adding this element to his game. But like any quarterback that creates outside the pocket, Rodgers through the years, Mahomes through the years, whoever it is, any player that does that a lot, we would always say, you find the time to rein it back in and play within structure. I don't want Stroud to get too comfortable, I don't think, playing outside the pocket. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to have a Mahomesian type play style as a general default setting. I felt like this game was one where, okay, not all the plays were forced, but most of the reason he left the pocket was because Jacksonville's pass rush was doing a really good job, was putting him under pressure, was forcing these plays. And then sometimes when you're under pressure that amount in a game, there are going to be plays where you feel it coming and it's not really there, and you start contributing to it, right? That's why pressure has this kind of compounding effect where the more you get, the more of an impact it makes, because the quarterback starts to feel it even when you're not actually getting pressure. Like it's an exponential effect almost. So I feel like he was under pressure a pretty decent amount in this game. He made a lot of good plays under pressure, and then that contributed to him maybe leaving some pockets that he wouldn't have ordinarily left. But generally, I think that's a forced change in his style, as opposed to him just sort of lapsing into those kinds of habits or that play style. So I wouldn't be hugely concerned about it unless it starts to become a bigger part of his game, in which case I agree it's not really his. I'm not even going to say it's not a skill set, because, I mean, he's doing really well doing that at the moment. But it's probably not where you want him living most of the time. But, I mean, I thought he played, again, really good in this game. Him, not only is he playing fantastically, the Tank Dell connection with C.J. Stroud is looking ridiculously good. And that, I think that's a huge part of it. It doesn't necessarily mean, a young, talented quarterback he doesn't even need necessarily a true number one superstar wide receiver, but he needs a guy that he has a connection with and that he's comfortable throwing the ball to. And right now, that's Tank Dell. I mean, Nico Collins may be their number one target. He may be their number one receiver. But when things go to hell, Tank Dell seems to be the guy that's on the same page as Stroud, and that's where the ball's going.
Yeah, the one you were mentioning, I think it would have been about a 62-yarder that got negated.
Yeah.
Where Stroud outside the pocket hit Tank Dell down
58.
the field. 58? Mm-hmm. It got negated by an illegal shift. So, that's unfortunate for Houston there. On the other side, as I mentioned, this was, every now and again, Trevor Lawrence has one of these games that looks like the games I envisioned Trevor Lawrence having, right? This was, he hit Christian Kirk for a 57-yarder just before the half to get the ball to the 1-yard line to give the Jags a scoring opportunity that shouldn't have existed. Now, that was a fascinating play, too, because they decided to use that one play instead of kicking the field goal.
Yeah.
They went for it. And they went to their QB sneak formation, which I love. But this is one of those where they pitched it out to Travis Etienne, and it was Desmond King who stuck him at the goal line. Desmond King's only snap of football.
Who don't even re-sign, recently.
Yeah. This was his only snap of the game. Because I'm watching this play, like I don't even know if they mentioned who it was or what. I went back and watched them, like, oh, that was Desmond King. Oh, that was his only snap.
Doesn't it feel
just stuffs ETN just before the half? That was a huge game where the Jags could have stolen a touchdown there.
Yeah, huge. I have no problem with that kind of ballsy, go for it attitude, right? Like instead of kicking, instead of doing whatever, like we're gonna go. We got one play, we score or nothing, all or nothing, touchdown or go to halftime. Let's take the shot. I have no problem with being that kind of ballsy and going for it. It feels like we're in this weird, I haven't even checked the numbers, see if this is accurate or not, but like the Eagles, at the same time as the Eagles have become virtually unstoppable at 3rd and 4th and short, the rest of the league seems to be getting worse at it. And everybody is having these nightmare struggles with these simple plays, half of which seem to be just overthinking the damn thing. And I don't know if this is a reaction to other teams now getting better at defending 3rd and 4th and short because the Eagles are forcing them to. Like even the Eagles will tell you teams are defending that push play way better than they were when they started doing it. Now they're still succeeding at it because they're executing better than the people are defending it. And theoretically, it might be unstoppable. But the fact that other teams are defending those plays better means that everybody else is going, oh, wow, it's way harder to sneak than it used to be. Let's try and do a pitch play or let's try and do a trick. But anyway, everyone else is like completely crapping themselves when it comes to these short plays that used to be pretty easy to convert and now are no longer.
Yeah, I mean, I like this because you're in again, I like the QB sneak formation. I like it as a changeup. The only thing I would do is read it out, right? I would get into this formation and have 3 options, and always go where the weakest one was. Trevor Lawrence had a QB sneak where he just used his reach, just reaching over the goal line earlier on in this game as well, which was a great play. But yeah, I don't mind it as a change of pace off the QB sneak as long as you have the right look. That's the key. But again, just to go back to Lawrence here, hit Calvin Ridley on a deep crosser, hit him in the hands on a deep ball in the end zone. This was an explosive Jags passing attack. Even though it didn't feel like a 24-21 game because, again, the Texans put up a ton of yards and the Jags put up a ton of yards. There weren't a ton of actual scores. It felt like a 40-37 type of game. But I thought this was a great game from Lawrence. Again, second straight week, hitting big-time throws and creating big plays here. Texans still had a chance to win it at the end. A couple opportunities to win it. And Jags defense held, man.
They did. Also, just to prove that we are not just PFF Bobby sycophants over here, didn't love the play call when they had 4th and 1, right? Down 10, not even 4th and 1, 4th and nothing, 4th and half a yard. Back to this, like, hey, are we overthinking 3rd and 4th and short? 4th and half a yard, right? Instead of sneaking or just piling forward and trying to pick up half a yard, they took a shot.
They did.
And I've said this before. I do not love deep shots on these incredible short plays because even if you get the right look, it's not a high percentage play. So this ball lands at the 20-yard line. How far is that? 20. Okay, so it's like a 35-yard. It's like a 40-yard in the air, 30-something yard pass, right, to a tight end. He is open. He's got a step on the DB or the defender, but 35 yards dropping it into a bucket is not a high percentage play when you need, it's all or nothing. You need this 4th down pickup. So what is more likely to happen, right? For you to pick up half a yard on a sneak, which as far as I'm aware is like a 70+% play in the NFL, even this year, or completing this 35-yard pass to a tight end in pretty tight coverage down the field.
I think it's
the sneak.
It looks to me, get an indie concept up top. It looks like they just had zone beaters and the Jags went press man across the board. When you're playing against press man, you're hoping you don't just have ISO routes where it's just, hey, go beat the guy one-on-one. You're hoping you have crossers and switch releases and all these things, a mesh concept, something that's going to screw up the defense and just create one open receiver. And the Texans have 0 open receivers here.
Right.
So part of it's just the play. Like the play call didn't necessarily have. There was no man concept beaters in there, and Jags went man. So I'm assuming they may have gone against tendency. But the Texans also went
just across
basically
the board.
4 wide, moved the tight end. It was basically 4 wide with a running back not even in position to take the handoff. You know, with that wide split.
Just across the board. I mean, forget the specific pass attempt that they made. I just like why go shotgun, spread it out on 4th and a half yard instead of just taking the half yard? Like you need this play. Any kind of pass attempt is a less likely thing to come off than just plowing forward to pick up half a yard.
I think spread the route. We got to do more research on that. The shotgun goal line run from the 1 was more effective than under center as of last year. I see other people tweeting about EPA
and
on
people
those plays.
hate that.
I know people detest that,
Right.
but as of last year, the shotgun on the 1 yard line, handoffs to running backs, I was very specific with all of this, were more effective than under center handoffs to running backs for like a multiple year period. I also saw something recently that said with 1 yard to go, EPA's higher under center versus in the shotgun. So I think where you are in the field matters. But I mean, people hate the shotgun on, 3rd and 4th and short, but it's not that different from under center. We'll have to look back.
The only other thing to mention in this game is the officiating in this game was horrendous. Not necessarily in one direction. It was just incompetent start to finish. Like this had some of the worst calls I've seen on a consistent basis.
Texans fans were booing loudly. So the Texans, I believe, were getting screwed early on. There was a pass interference in the end zone early.
There were multiple pass interferences, I think, on the same drive.
Well, I think early on the Texans were getting screwed. Then Trevor Lawrence throws an interception only because of pass interference or a defensive hold, right? He's trying to throw a slant. The receiver just gets hooked, isn't where he's supposed to be, and the ball goes past where the receiver was supposed to be to Derek Stingley, who does a nice job catching it. After that play, Tavier Thomas for the Texans got penalized like 3 times on one drive.
Right.
And those were all like a little arm bar. I mean, it was frustrating to watch because you're trying to, I don't know if it's human nature or if it's legit a call in like, hey man, we literally cost the Jaguars a possession. The next arm bar is going to be a pass interference. I don't know if this is conscious or not, or if it's just human nature.
It did seem like they went hard at the makeup calls in this game.
They went
and then
really
spent
hard.
the entire game making up from the last makeup call and just kept lurching back and forth between terrible calls.
It was bad. It was bad both ways.
Yes.
The chat suggesting that we should pick on Bobby since, he hasn't been on the show.
Go the other way. Lean into
Yeah.
We're definitely not
really
in.
turned
We're
heel.
not in the pocket of Bobby Slowick.
Bobby's first loss since breakfast. Is that right?
The breakfast with us as opposed to just breakfast.
With us. Yeah.
Right.
He's a normal breakfast eater, I believe. All right, man. Jags moved to 8-3. A few other teams at 8-3 in the AFC. So battle for that number 1 seed or general seeding there. Texans fall to 6-5, but still very much in the playoff picture. Man, there's a lot of games to talk about here. Let's go. I want to talk about this one. Atlanta Falcons 24, New Orleans Saints 15. Falcons move to 5-6. Saints fall to 5-6. Falcons currently in first in the NFC South with that 5-6 record. Man, the Saints don't play normal football games. Neither do the Falcons. There was a lot going on here.
Yeah.
Among the key plays, Jesse Bates. I want to talk about the Saints and their red zone woes again because they entered the red zone 5 times, and they did not have any touchdowns on any red zone trips.
It's not ideal.
In part because once they got there, Derek Carr on 3rd and 3 throws a 92-yard pick 6 to Jesse Bates. Unbelievable. I mean, Jesse Bates, if you watch the play, he's just reading it. You can kind of see him slow playing it, be like, he's not really going to throw it, is he? He's not really. Oh, he threw it. I got it. I'm out.
He has no shot at this, I think, because of the season that other people are having. But Jesse Bates is quietly putting together a pretty solid Defensive Player of the Year type of season, like a good candidacy that in other years would have a real shot at winning it. I mean, he's made some spectacular plays this season, some really high leverage plays as well. It's just, this is a year where edge rushers, there's like 6 of them all dominating.
But that's why, from a PFF grading standpoint, the position that tends to fluctuate the most is safety. And I don't think it's a PFF grading issue. It really is a football issue. Like Jesse Bates wasn't making these plays last year. But
it's entirely, I mean, as much as you can make the play, you're still dependent on the quarterback putting it there. I mean,
of course.
Bryce Young, earlier in the season, essentially knew Jesse Bates was there, thought he was going to move, didn't move, still took a shot. Like, if he doesn't take the shot, it's just a play. Yeah. It's a snap that means nothing.
But like Bates was making some of these plays, say in 2021, wasn't doing it as much last year, but he is making these plays this year. 92-yard pick six and a peanut punch on Taysom Hill.
Yes.
In the red zone.
Taysom Hill, whose one critical flaw is not like versatility that's useless to everybody. It's that the dude can't stop fumbling.
Yeah. So that was a huge part of the Falcons' win here. You also have the eventual game winner was a wheel route to Bijan Robinson. Really well-designed play because he was coming from the opposite side. Wheel route, Desmond Ridder threw it up and put it right on him for a 26-yard touchdown. That was beautiful when Bijan was actually catching the ball. He had a couple drops in there. He ran the ball well as well. And then the Saints, again, from their perspective, another empty 304 passing yards from Derek Carr that weren't leading to touchdowns because, again, they entered the red zone 5 times. And the plays were bad.
Carr had such a weird game, though. Like it felt like early on he was absolutely dealing, but his bad plays were horrendous.
Pick six and a fumble in there.
It also doesn't help that like half the Saints offense left the game injured at one point or another. Like Chris Olave was absolutely destroying people, gets hurt. Like half the offense ended up being banged up and missing the game at some point. Like Lynn Bowden Jr. ends up being a random, really important part of the offense simply because other people are getting banged up. Offensive line was getting hurt.
Eric McCoy, center, injured.
Yeah, Ryan Ramczyk injured as well. I mean, they got really banged up at various points in this game.
So I wrote down some of the highlights of the Saints' red zone possessions. So you've got the Jesse Bates pick six, the Jesse Bates forced fumble on Taysom Hill that they lost. You also have Derek Carr. He has Rashid Shaheed open on a slant, throws it low. If you put it on him, it's probably a walk-in touchdown. Puts it low. Still probably should have been caught by Shaheed, but it would have put him down at the 1, maybe in the end zone, but it was a low throw and a drop at the same time. Carr throws a pass to A.T. Perry, who's run blocking, while Carr is throwing a fade, so you had a miscommunication there. You have a third down sack where Arnold Ebiketie gets through in about 1.5 seconds.
Yeah. Against whoever the backup was it Landon Young because Ramczyk was hurt?
Yes. And you have Alvin Kamara. As soon as they get into the red zone, 2-yard run, holding call takes them out of the red zone. They eventually end up with a 39-yard field goal. I mean, the teams that are tough to figure out, right, when we sit here analyzing every single week and we talk about underlying metrics and the grades are good or the yards are good or EPA is good, but the win-loss record isn't. And the Saints aren't necessarily that. They've been very inconsistent. But the teams that probably should be better than their record and are confusing, it's usually the situational football stuff, right? It usually is red zone and turnovers. And the Saints were just bad at all of this yesterday. It was the turnovers. It was penalties at the wrong time. It was just not being good once they get inside the 20 of the opposing team. Once again, they can't do it. So credit the Falcons, man. They made those plays, as I mentioned. Jesse Bates made those plays, but it's been a year-long issue for the Saints, who are still really talented. Yeah, they've had injuries and everything, but they should be better than they are.
Yeah, and to be fair, like they needed Tyrann Mathieu making a couple of like him doing his Jesse Bates on the other side, trying to keep them in the game to make this as close as it was. It's just a bizarre game because you're right. Like they had a lot of production and they made a lot of big plays moving the football and then just got nothing out of those big plays, whereas the Falcons actually punished them when they had opportunities.
All right, the one other play we have to highlight here is the John Cena play.
Yes.
So the Falcons have 4th and 2. And so I like the creativity here a little bit.
You do, huh?
Well, I didn't like the way it ended. I like the creativity of putting an offensive lineman in motion. Michigan's been doing some of this at the college level this year.
Somebody did that, Seahawks. Seahawks did it, in fact, to the 49ers. Yeah. Because remember there was a meme last year when the 49ers put Trent Williams in motion a few times, and he was just like bulldoze some poor people.
Yeah.
And he's already the best run-blocking left tackle in the NFL. Now you're going to give him a running head start at humans? This is just bullying. I think it was the Seahawks did it. Was it Stone Forsythe or somebody? And it's like, it was the Lions because it was, I think it was Dan Skipper.
Skipper, who I tweeted out as it's Dan Skinner, but it was Skipper. Yes.
Skipper. And it's like, wow, this looks a lot different when Dan Skipper is the guy in motion as opposed to Trent Williams. Like, Trent Williams in motion, you're like, this is an unstoppable moving force of humanity headed towards a defender. When Dan Skipper's in motion, you're like, this doesn't feel like a big problem.
All right, Mike, I dropped it in the chat here. If we could, I don't know if we can put the picture up if it's too late. I should have done it earlier, but my joke was this is John Cena playing right tackle.
Yeah.
But they moved Caleb McGarry from right tackle to tight end. And I don't mind this as a concept, but like when teams usually do this, they have the tight end come in and play right tackle. The Falcons actively chose to play the snap without an actual right tackle.
Yes. So there's
just a gap there.
They have a combined B and C gap.
Yes.
So we go A gap, and then we have B and C gap, which is like 3 times the size of a normal gap.
It is just funny because if the Arthur Smith joke is, the goal is to do what no one's expecting us to do. That's what we're going to – this is the ultimate
Did you watch the clip that I sent you?
move.
Yeah, so they then the long and the short of this is they then ran the ball at the gap that had no body in it.
Yeah, and honestly, the play could have worked if they didn't blow 2 blocks. Right guard and fullback both missed their block, and it looked horrendous. But they also ran right at the vacated right tackle spot,
Yeah.
yes.
Did you watch the clip that I sent you that it reminded me of, that Arthur Smith reminds me of?
You've sent me that clip probably once a year for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
So I knew what it
him.
was. I already knew what the clip was.
It's from a sitcom, a British sitcom called Blackadder, in which Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, shows up to talk to Prince George, or what he thinks is Prince George. And he's saying, right, Napoleon is stationed in North Africa, right? The Napoleonic Wars, if you're watching the movie, you'll know. Napoleon is stationed in North Africa, so where have we got Nelson stationed? And the guy goes, Alaska, in case Boney should try and trick us by coming via the North Pole. And he just like looks at him like, what, you an idiot. This is what I feel like Arthur Smith tries to do, right? What are we trying to do? Well, we're going to run through this gap that nobody's in, because that's the last thing they'll be expecting, just in case they should try and trick us that way by putting no bodies in that gap that we put. Like, okay, but no, there's a reason that it's the last thing nobody's expecting you to do, because it's the last thing you should be doing.
It was just a very funny play, yeah. On 4th and 2, it did get stopped. On the other hand, this was also one of those games. The Falcons end up winning. They had to force those turnovers and everything. The run game was really effective other than that 4th and 2 with no right tackle. Drake London had a good game, and they overcame Desmond Ridder in a couple interceptions. So 24-15, Falcons win. Currently the leader in the NFC South, and would be hosting the Dallas Cowboys if the playoffs started today.
Glorious.
All right, let's go. Speaking of the NFC South, let's get this game here. Indianapolis Colts 27 and Tampa Bay Bucks 20. So the Bucks fall to 4-7. So now they're in second place in the third place in the NFC South. The Colts, man, 6-5 here, and they're in the hunt, man. They're in a little playoff push here.
Yeah.
Quick takeaway on this one.
They're in a spot right now, right? I think they're in a. Are they in a wild card spot as things currently stand?
Scroll up to the AFC here. The Indianapolis Colts would be your 7 seed right now, above the Texans. Right? The Texans are exciting. They've got C.J. Stroud, but they got the Colts. I think they're playing each other this week. No, they're not.
Good story.
Forget that. Yeah, very good story. Good story. Colts are the 7 seed as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
They win the tiebreaker over Denver based off win percentage in conference games. Just as a heads up here.
Great.
But yeah, the Colts, man, like we've highlighted their offensive line. We said this coming into the season. Their O-line was trash last year because they got hurt. And Sam Ehlinger was holding the ball forever when they put him in as a starter. And the whole thing looked terrible. Matt Ryan, it was bad. They stayed healthy this year. And the O-line, I don't want to say they won them this game, but they were very good. From a pass pro standpoint against Tampa, they ran the ball very effectively. Jonathan Taylor had 8 first downs or touchdowns on 15 carries.
Taylor had a great game.
He had a very good game, and the line was excellent. Zach Moss had a nice game. The Colts, Shane Steichen doing a nice job.
Yeah.
To me also, but they're running the Anthony Richardson offense quite a bit here. You have Gardner Minshew with a rushing touchdown. By the way, he juked Devin White
Devin
out
White,
of his shoes.
yes.
Let me just finish my thought really quick, then you can pick on Devin. The Colts are running an effective offense behind a good offensive line, and they're kind of sneaky good here.
I was going to defend Devin White.
Oh, okay. It wasn't an easy play, but
No. The play was terrible. Devin White played like crap. Having said that, Devin White was one of these people that came into the game injured.
I understand.
He was playing through an injury, which probably contributed to him playing like crap.
Fair. So I won't highlight him any further.
No, I mean there's enough of his career that shows that he might play like that anyway. But this particular game, I'm willing to suggest that he was playing hurt and therefore was beaten on several occasions on plays that maybe wouldn't necessarily have gone that way otherwise.
Yeah, Levante David was out for the Bucs as well. They had rookie Savachea Dennis. I finally heard his name properly, I think. Savachea. He made some nice plays in there as well. I liked him coming out of the draft. But you kind of saw like the linebackers were an issue for the Bucs in this game, but that's part of the reason why the run game was so effective for the Colts. But again, another good back and forth battle, and then it was the Bucs had a chance to come back. They made a comeback. Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns, had a 23-yarder in there to get them within a score. Bucs made a stop, but Samson Ebukam with the strip sack to seal the deal.
Yeah, and against Tristan Wirfs. This might have been the worst game of pass protection Tristan Wirfs has had in his NFL career.
Now, he was hurt. I don't know if he was on the injury
isn't to say it was catastrophic, but he was beaten multiple times, including twice for sacks, by Samson Ebukam. That's not a matchup you would normally have anticipated would go in the direction of the Colts. A few points to make. Number one, the offensive line point is good. In addition, it's largely speaking the same group from last year, including the injuries, right? Like some of the narrative last year was, hey, if they had the starting 5 healthy all year, it's a much better offensive line. But they kept getting banged up and forced into the bench. I mean, they have French Fries playing at guard center again, and it's working, right?
French Fries.
Yeah. Wesley French and Will Fries. Unfortunately, they line up Fries French rather than French Fries, which makes it less funny. But
Arthur Smith would switch them, for a play for the humor, which I appreciate.
The last thing they'll be expecting me to do is to put a center at guard and a guard at center.
Just so it says French Fries.
Right. But they're playing well still despite being forced into the bench again. Other guys have played the full time and been good, but that offensive line has not been the starting 5 that they would want it to be all season long, and it's still playing better. Tristan Wirfs, as I said, bad game by him. This must have been, was this the peak, the apex of quarterback moxie in a single NFL game? Baker Mayfield versus hipster Baker Mayfield. Gardner Minshew. This must have been one of the top 5 all-time quarterback moxie games.
That's why it was a 1-score game.
Right. It couldn't be anything else.
Back and forth moxie. I mean, Baker had his Minshew has his scramble for a touchdown.
Yeah, Baker had a couple.
Baker had his scramble for a first down. He always has 1 or 2.
Trucked a linebacker at one point.
Gets up, fired up, gets his team fired up. They're from a Bucs perspective, they're kind of calling for Todd Bowles here, calling for a firing. They started 2-0. They're 2-7 since their 2-0 start. And even those games, it was like, they snuck past the Vikings, which was a bit of a surprise, I thought, in week 1. They were 6-point underdogs. The Bucs they didn't have high expectations coming into the season, right? Tom Brady retired. They lost a little bit of talent, but they also still had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as a starting point and some good defensive players. But it's been a rough stretch here for the Bucs. So I don't know if something's coming out of this with Todd Bowles.
And a lot of it is defensive as well. Like, one of the biggest problems in this game was they could not stop Jonathan Taylor, particularly late in the game. Like, the Colts were able to essentially salt this away because the Bucs couldn't stop the run game. And even though they were trying to execute their own comeback on the other side, the Colts are just chewing the clock and eating the game up.
Early in the game, Bucs had a really nice first drive. Baker Mayfield got hurt on a QB sneak.
A non-push QB sneak.
So Kyle Trask came in for 1 play, threw what looked like a dime.
2 plays. Because the first play, he threw what should have been like an interception. It was a terrible ball location on a fade to the other side of the end zone. It was like inside and low, and that was negated through something or other, or was bailed out for some reason. And then the next throw was a dime.
The other throw to Chris Godwin looked like a dime, ends up incomplete. They settled for a field goal. Baker did come back in, but immediately threw an interception. So, him and Minshew traded interceptions that kind of set up the opposing team for short fields. There was also one call in here. The Colts went for it on 4th and 1, Bucs territory, but it was 4th and 1. Zaire Franklin comes in all the time, the Colts linebacker, but they had the play action and sent Mo Alley-Cox up the seam.
Yeah.
Bucs completely bid on that. I don't want to say who, but people bid on the thing.
Multiple people bid on
the play action. They all bid. Yeah. All right. It wasn't just one guy. But Mo Alley-Cox wide open up the seam there. That was a huge play. Colts got to Baker Mayfield 6 times, including the couple that you mentioned against Tristan Wirfs. Wirfs was banged up a few weeks ago, probably playing through injury. So, yeah, all that's adding up for Tampa Bay. And again, the Colts, if early in the year we were highlighting all of Minshew's turnover-worthy plays, like if he just takes care of the ball. Michael Pittman had a big game. He's a good move the chains type of receiver. They have the running game. They have the O-line. Defense has been solid. The Colts can be feisty here down the stretch, which is why they're the 7th seed in the AFC. Mm-hmm. All right, you're doing a good job at keeping us on point here. All right, I want to tell you about our Prize Picks lineup. We got Monday Night Football here, and so we have our own PFF lineup here. Our guy Tyler decided to draw it up. It's Monday Night Football, Vikings and the Bears. We've got TJ Hawkinson going more than 63.5 receiving yards. Hawk has been a favorite target of Joshua Dobbs so far. And so we're expecting Dobbs to feed Hawkinson more than 63.5 receiving yards. We're expecting Dobbs to go more than 33 passing attempts in this game. And then we always have a little kicker action in there. Greg Joseph going more than 1.5 field goals. That's kind of how we do it here at PFF. Got to throw the kicker in there. So that's our Prize Picks lineup. TJ Hawkinson more than 63.5 receiving yards. Josh Dobbs more than 33 passing attempts. And Greg Joseph more than 1.5 field goals. So Prize Picks, we've talked about how with basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce, a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. If you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, you can do that with the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community every single week. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if a player exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second half, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So go to prizepicks.com/PFFNFL and use code PFFNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/PFFNFL. Use code PFFNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, let's go. Pittsburgh Steelers 16, Cincinnati Bengals 10. Steelers move to 7-4. Bengals fall to 5-6. The Steelers went over 400 yards of offense
for the first time in 58 games, only 45 of which were under Matt Canada. So Canada was 0 for 45 in 400-yard games.
So it wasn't just him.
No, and then there were 13 previous games before Canada arrived where they hadn't hit 400 yards either.
You were right, though. You were right. You said we would see a new offense.
Play number 1. First play, shot over the middle to Pat Freiermuth up the seam. Like, this was a play that didn't exist in the Matt Canada school of offense. Like, number 1 play was a shot down the middle in a route that didn't really exist under the Canada offense. They had another one first or second drive as well. Kenny Pickett starts the game 6 for 6. They had 149 yards in the first quarter. They were on pace for 600 after the first quarter. I mean, this was a different offense.
It was the preseason offense. This is why people were optimistic about the Steelers, because Kenny Pickett did throw seam routes to Pat Freiermuth in the preseason.
I am people.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we were like, Matt Canada's changed.
Yeah.
He had 200. No. We were thinking he had 200 days this offseason to evaluate his offense and think, oh, look, there's grass and turf in between these two numbers. It exists. We can use that. We can exploit it. We have a tight end who's pretty good running the seam. We have George Pickens, who might be more than just a contested catch receiver who could play in the slot, which also exists in between those two numbers. So, yeah, the Steelers did it. Now, the humorous part in all of this is they moved the ball extremely well, still only scored 16 points, and at one point had
Three. Yeah.
A lot of yards and only 3 points. So they weren't converting, in part because Deontay Johnson got hit in the hands. Like it is funny how often he does not score touchdowns.
Well, they had this crazy sequence where Kenny Pickett hits Deontay Johnson in the end zone for a touchdown, and it's in his hands. He takes the 2 steps, and then it was Turner, right? DJ Turner forced the ball out.
Ripped it out.
Right at the end. So when he went to ground, it didn't count, right? It comes out at the end. Now, in this world of like 2 feet down and blah, blah, in the end zone, is that a touchdown? Is it not? Whatever. Didn't stand. They didn't challenge it either. They let it go. And then the very next play, fumble. Jalen Warren fumbles the ball away. DJ Turner, again, scoops it up and returns it a decent degree, in part because Deontay Johnson appeared so pissed off at the previous play that he was just standing there in the slot. Doing nothing.
He took to Twitter.
Both before and after the fumble, by the way.
Yeah.
I get that you might not have seen the fumble that occurred right next to your feet, right? And you thought the play was dead or whatever, so you didn't react. Cool. Having said that, from the slot on a run play, you were just standing there chatting to the slot corner. That doesn't look great.
So he took to quote tweeting some of the aggregators that highlighted that. Did he come after you? Because you highlighted it too.
I don't believe so. I mean, I might not have. Maybe I've muted him. I haven't seen.
Yeah. So he came to Twitter.
Let's find out. What did he say?
I mean, he didn't really defend himself. It was just like, I don't know why he would highlight that video. I wouldn't want other people to. I mean, the only explanation there is he thought, like you said, thought the play was dead.
Yes.
And even with the ball bouncing right past him, thought that the play was dead for some reason.
Yes.
But it wasn't a great look.
Yeah, I don't buy.
In a week where there were, rumblings of fights in the locker room and arguments, including Deontay.
Yeah, I don't buy that he didn't see it because it bounced right next to him and he was kind of looking that direction. And then even at the end, even when he suddenly realizes stuff's up, he turns his head to look at it and then goes, nah, whatever. There were multiple instances of I'm not interested in this play. And it occurred right next to the one where he maybe scored a touchdown and it wasn't looked at. So there were reasons for him to not be happy. There was another play in this game as well where he ran an out route. There was a coverage bust. He was wide open on the sideline and the ball went the other direction. This is the kind of play. Now there was a string of them, but this is the kind of play that got Chase Claypool run out of Pittsburgh eventually. It was like this, just standing there not doing anything.
It's just a constant the Jon Snow meme where he pulls out the sword and he's taking on the entire army. That's like Mike Tomlin in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, but they're drafting them. They're your own wide receivers. You're the guys that keep going after these people.
I know. It does go back to the chicken or the egg thing. Are you creating these people or are you finding them?
Or
are you bringing them in?
Wide receiver energy succubus.
You're just
keeps destroying them.
Give me all these talented guys, I'll make it work. Anyway, the Steelers won, man, and they did move the ball pretty effectively. Kenny Pickett with a really good game. This was the first time Kenny Pickett, he had no touchdowns because of the Deontay Johnson thing, but Kenny Pickett kind of had a real stat line.
Right.
It wasn't one of those 16 for 29 for 140 and he never has turnover-worthy plays or interceptions or whatever. He still has the lowest touchdown percentage in history because Deontay Johnson did not hold that ball. But 24 for 33 for 278 for Kenny Pickett.
8.4 yards per attempt.
8.4 yards per attempt. 2 absolute dimes. One to Pickens, dropped in a bucket on the slot fade. One to Deontay Johnson on a fade on the other side. Yep. There were some big plays in there. Freiermuth had the 9 catches for 120. We've been calling for Jalen Warren having more carries, and in this particular game, it was Najee Harris that outperformed Jalen Warren. Warren lost a fumble, had only 49 yards, 3.8 a pop. Najee did a really nice job. Forced a missed tackle. He did. The Bengals' second-level defenders just didn't play great against the run. Najee Harris outrunning them to the edge a couple times, getting into the end zone, breaking a tackle. Najee finishes with 99 yards on 15 carries and a touchdown, his best game in a while.
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson hasn't been the same player since injuring that knee, getting somebody rolled into him a couple weeks ago. Like, he played last week, or last game, he had a sack, and that was a really nice play, but it was basically his only play of the game. Second straight game where he's basically had, I think, the same thing, right? He had a sack, but nothing else. So, like, Trey Hendrickson was playing maybe not quite at that insane 6 players playing at Defensive Player of the Year kind of standard, but he was like the next guy up in that list of guys who were playing at an insane level. And he's not anymore, and that's a big loss to that defense.
On the other side, it was Jake Browning's first start for the Bengals. A couple plays where he's holding the ball quite a while, including a sack where T.J. Watt comes in late for the strip sack. T.J. Watt also had a really quick sack in there as well. A couple nice plays by T.J. Browning, bad interception coming out of the half. That hurt. For a guy we mentioned before, he made a couple nice plays under pressure in this game, but a couple of his big plays also just came off tip passes. Balls landed right in Jamar Chase's hands for a big gain. For a guy that has to just play clean football, and by clean, that has to be, not taking negative plays, not turning the ball over, just not enough clean play from Jake Browning in this one.
No, it was. T.J. Watt, I thought, had a spectacular game. I mean, he's been a strange player the last couple of years, where he tends to have these really high impact single play games, like the high leverage plays, the strip sacks, the turnovers, etc. Doesn't necessarily get the volume of pressure that some of these other guys get, but he had a ton of pressure, had the high impact plays, like just a complete T.J. Watt game.
Man, the Steelers are fascinating. 7-4. Cardinals at home next week. Patriots the following week. Could be 9-4 here.
Yeah.
With this new look offense that puts up over 400 yards
every week
in a football game, in one game, not
every
over
week.
2 games.
100%.
100% of the time without Matt Canada. I mean, Matt Canada was also 2-1 from the sideline.
Yeah, but
Don't
that's
forget.
only 66%.
That's true. They're undefeated since Canada's firing. 16-10. Steelers with the win here. We got 2 more good 1 o'clock games to discuss. New York Giants 10. New England Patriots 7.
Go. Tommy
DeVito,
Yes.
2-0 as NFL starter here.
Tommy DeVito, I think, is my favorite thing of the NFL season this year. I love it. I love Tommy DeVito. I love the memes. I love his family. I love the fact that you can put up a replacements clip at the end when the Patriots kicker conveniently misses, to stop Tommy DeVito winning a game. Just, it's beautiful. Everything about it. And he's playing quite well. Yes. I mean, let's not lose sight of that. Tommy DeVito, undrafted rookie, is actually looking okay behind a terrible offensive line, in one of the worst offensive situations in the NFL.
Weather game, too.
Whatever.
It was rainy, cold. I'm protecting Tommy.
Protect him.
Game. Is it Chad Ryland? 35-yard field goal wide left to go to overtime. Patriots, Mac Jones got benched at halftime. 2 more horrendous, awful interceptions. 4 turnover-worthy plays total, I believe. Should have had another pick in there. Off the top of my head, had a fumble. Bailey Zappi comes in. Zappi led the only touchdown drive for New England with an average depth of target under 0. So it's like, Bailey Zappi with the spark. Yeah, he threw a couple screens, and they ran the ball well. They scored a touchdown. That was it, because Zappi had an interception of Mac Jones quality later on. But Zappi did get the Patriots into field goal range for a 35-yarder to go to overtime. Bill Belichick playing for the field goal, not for the win. I was theorizing, there's nothing Bill Belichick likes more than to be in overtime and to choose the wind. There's nothing he likes more than to win the coin toss and say, I don't want the ball. I want the wind. I'm playing the conditions.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the Arthur Smith of coin toss selection here. Everybody else takes the ball. I'm a wind guy.
The wind.
I know the right part of the stadium for kicking field goals. I know the wind conditions. It's in New Jersey. It's always, swirling over there. He was going to take the wind. But we didn't get to see that because they missed a 35-yard field goal to go to overtime. There was a lot of, look, I know Tommy's the future in New York, and I would never suggest otherwise. But some people some people were thinking there might be some QB implications in the draft on this game and everything. Like the Giants could be in position where, not me, mind you, that maybe they were going to draft a quarterback. No, this is Tommy's team. It's Tommy's team in New York. But for New England, they're now in line for the number 2 overall pick, sitting here at 2-9 behind only the Carolina Panthers in the draft pecking order. And of course, Panthers don't actually own their pick. It's the Bears.
Yeah.
So the Caleb Williams, Drake May thing, very much alive in New England. And Tommy DeVito, very much alive in New York.
Yeah. Andrew Thomas back. A huge boost to that offensive line, which has been, historically terrible. I mean, Andrew Thomas is an all-pro caliber left tackle. At the very minimum, you're upgrading one spot from being a catastrophe to being an all-pro caliber level. Like, it's only going to make so much impact on the offensive line, but it does make an impact at probably the most important position for the quarterback. Like, as much as, you rail against the left tackle, right tackle thing, there's something to the fact that most of the time that's going to be where he's not looking. You don't really want a guy that's a turnstile at that spot, giving up pressure every single play. So Thomas being back makes a difference to that offensive line. But seriously, let's give Tommy some credit. That guy's played pretty well for 2 straight games in what is still a terrible situation. Nobody is expecting him to do anything. And at the very minimum, he has done as good a job, if not better, than Tyrod Taylor, who himself improved upon Daniel Jones when he came in.
Yeah, one other thing I want to highlight, too, is Jalen Hyatt with a big game. Clearly, I mean, there was times where it looked like Tyrod was really trying to get him involved. What happened there? What'd you drop?
There's I would say a medium-sized bolt that's now on the floor that was presumably attached to something else.
From your chair?
Previously to that. I would assume it was the chair.
Are you breaking the chairs that handle 300-pounders like myself?
I'm not breaking it. There's a piece that's no longer in it that I would assume was supposed to be there and would theoretically have some structural role in the chair.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
With that chair. Good thing you're not pushing 300 bills.
No.
Three bills.
3 bills.
3 bills, like me. Anyway, I was trying to highlight the fact that Jalen Hyatt having the Christian Watson late season breakout here as the deep threat, coming good. 5 catches for 109 yards, including, an absolute dime from Tommy on 3rd and 16 in the third quarter. Just dropped it in there for Hyatt. But it looked like, remember those points in Tyrod's little run there where it looked like they were trying to get Jalen Hyatt involved down the field because Daniel Jones wasn't. And Tommy is unlocking Jalen Hyatt, who was clearly the best receiver on the field for the Giants yesterday. So just something else to keep an eye on there, and more credit to Tommy DeVito.
More credit to Tommy.
One other stat I wanted to highlight, New England's passing attack, if you want to call it that, over the last 2 games. So they were in Germany, played the Colts, then they had a bye. Coming out of the bye, there was a lot of drama. Bill Belichick said, no, you will not have a schematic advantage in this game. I will not tell you who the starting quarterback is. Could be Mac Jones, could be Bailey Zappi, could be Will Grier, who got cut on Saturday. It's Mac Jones again. And the results were still terrible. But the Patriots' passing game is averaging minus 0.4 EPA per play over the last 2 weeks, meaning every single time they drop back, they're almost giving the defense a half point every single time they drop back over the last 2 games, which is bad.
Yeah. Mac Jones is a broken shell of a human being at this point and can't see the field again. I tweeted that he's dad bod Zach Wilson. It's worse. He's horrendous. He's not even vaguely functional as an NFL quarterback. He wouldn't be playing if it wasn't for the fact that his backups, are Bailey Zappi or a guy that might not even be a quarterback. I understand that Bailey Zappi may play for the rest of the season and put a PFF grade of 35 out there on a regular basis. It's probably still better. Just do it.
Because Mac Jones had a 22 yesterday with 4 turnover-worthy plays on 22 dropbacks and got benched at the half. Yeah, he's broken.
Yeah.
Right now. And, honestly, New England might be better off just – I don't know how bad Will Grier was that he got cut against Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, but right. New England might be better off grabbing Malik Cunningham, someone off the street, if they want to be competitive. Now, if they want to tank, get a draft pick, continue.
Well, it's what is your goal? At this point, if your goal is to win games, none of them give you a shot. You might as well just almost rotate between them. If your goal is to sort of keep the locker room, like the Jets, so your defense doesn't get so pissed off that it just downs tools, then again, the only thing you can do is to give each guy a shot and at least convince the other side of the building that you're giving it a roll. Like, hey, that didn't work. We're going to try the next guy and, keep swinging. You don't have any good options. Like, this is like the Jet situation. There is no good. There is only least bad.
Yeah, you should probably just try to lose the rest of the...
Right, but equally, if you were literally trying to lose the rest of the way out, you would just keep Mac Jones in there and say, good try, Mac.
Go get him.
Give it another shot.
Enough of that game. Good win by Tommy, though. Good.
Let's go, Tommy.
Tennessee Titans 17, Carolina Panthers 10. Titans moved to 4-7. Panthers fall to 1-10. Of course, the Titans are now 4-0 in the city of Nashville, 0-7 in all other cities in the world.
How come you bring up the Titans' home road splits, but you don't bring up Dallas's?
I could bring those up too.
I don't think Dallas have trailed at home this season.
Yeah, they've averaged 41 points a game at home, Dallas.
I don't think they've been down, at any point.
Wait till the Eagles come in.
But that's more impressive than the Titans, no?
The Titans one is funny because they played a home game in London and lost.
Yeah. No, I know that.
Right? That's what makes it funnier.
Yeah.
And that they haven't won a game outside of Nashville since last October or November. No, since last November in Green Bay was the last time they won a non-Nashville game. Okay?
Okay.
That's why.
All right.
17-10. Derrick Henry with a couple of rushing touchdowns. Bryce Young in Carolina, another rough offensive performance. Frank Reich's seat is said to be extremely hot. Owner David Tepper.
Pissed off.
What was the quote? I want to quote it.
The quote was just yelling,
Keep
dropping
it
an
centered.
F-bomb, right?
Keep it centered, yes. There was a Panthers reporter who said David Tepper came out and just came out of the locker room frustrated.
Yes, and just yelled a 4-letter expletive beginning with F.
Yeah, that's just kind of funny reporting. But, what does that look like? David Tepper's in there Frank, I'm so mad that you guys lost to this Titans team with only 3 wins.
Yeah, this team
and our rookie quarterback looks worse than their rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Ah! That's what he's...
Yeah, he's just...
Tell me about it. As a billionaire empathizer here.
As a successful billionaire, you're not used to failure, and you don't tolerate failure.
Yeah.
And if somebody is consistently failing, that person needs to be gotten rid of immediately. To hell with the cost, because you're a billionaire. What do you care? So, he's going to be the next... I think he's going to be the next of this line of billionaires that comes in from business and just doesn't have the patience to see anything through because he wants change immediately. So Frank Reich may not last the full season, or if he does, he will.
It sounds
only
like
last.
it's the seat is so hot he might not last the day.
Right, or he may not. If he does, he won't last beyond the full season. They will just get rid of him, onto the next guy, and then you'll just have this endless sequence of 1 year, 18-month hires because I demand immediate results.
As GM, Steve, I would go in and I'd say, listen, David, do you know that we're facing...
You're already fired.
I'm not saying Mr.
David. You got to... No, it's David. Mr. This is a billionaire.
Mr.
Of course he is. I demand
respect. He has more money than me doesn't mean he's a mister.
Yeah,
he's an adult just like me.
No.
Okay?
You're out immediately. Gone. Get out of here.
I would say, David, you can't fire Frank.
Leave the building.
After facing the juggernaut that is the Nashville Tennessee Titans. Undefeated Titans in Nashville.
While you're doing that, he's pressing a button on his desk that simply signals to the person outside who's worked with him for about 25 years, kind of old lady, has been there, done that, seen how this works. It's a button that when that light goes off, she knows, revoke credentials, remove him, go to HR, remove him from the system, get rid of his parking credential, turn off his fob so that he can't get back in the building, so that by the time you walk out of that meeting, you've already been purged from the system.
And pay me the rest of my contract.
Fine. Perfect. I'm a billionaire. What do I care?
So, tough job over in Carolina. Titans get the win here. There was Arden Key had a big game, strip sack that set up one of the Titans' touchdowns. Thought Will Levis played fine. Hit his, what are my notes here? Hit his high-lows, couple
I thought
nice
both
play
quarterbacks
action
played
dig
okay.
to Chris Moore. Yeah, Bryce Young was fine, but
the numbers will stink, but they both had, bad offensive lines, not good. It's not a good situation for either guy. But
when you're watching Bryce Young, though, he's still not. He doesn't see it, and we mentioned about the height and everything. His His first turnover, I believe it's in as a turnover-worthy play. He has a dig route open over the middle of the field. Doesn't pull the trigger. Rolls out, throws it late, and it should have been picked. That's where, the scouting height thing, does he see it? Some of those plays are kind of coming up. He's just late to stuff a little bit too much. I thought Levis played pretty clean, missed a couple throws in there as well, but overall was pretty good. Had an awesome play under pressure, got it up to Chiga Okonkwo after getting popped. And Derrick Henry ran really well. 8 forced missed tackles, ran well in the tight red zone. Only ended up, he's another guy that's only 76 yards. It was a horrendous run blocking effort by the Titans. Henry he created 76 yards. I don't know how many were after contact, but created 76 yards out of almost nothing in this game. So
Henry is interesting because as a guy, that size who doesn't have, he's not explosive. He doesn't have quick twitch, acceleration. He understands very well how to be Derrick Henry. Does that make sense? For a guy that needs some runway to get up to full speed, at which point, once he's up to full speed, he's extremely difficult to stop or take down or slow down. He understands how to take angles to get him up to full speed without just, running into spaces that aren't there and therefore stalling his own momentum and therefore being more difficult to take down. Derrick Henry actually understands very well how to play like Derrick Henry, which I think is why he's been unusually successful, relative to some other backs that have similar size, strength, speed, explosiveness combinations.
good description there. I like it.
Thank you.
It's a good way to wrap up that game, too. Let's get to the 4 o'clocks.
Yeah, we're done with
we
this
had
one.
5 more to game. I got no more use for this game. Los Angeles Rams 37, Arizona Cardinals 14. Rams moved to 5-6, very much in the mix there for that 6 and 7 seed in the NFC. Cardinals fall to 2-10, and 1-2 now with Kyler Murray back. Not a great game for Kyler Murray. Matthew Stafford on the other side finishes with 4 touchdowns, hit Tyler Higbee with 2 early, and then Kyren Williams with a huge game for the Rams. 2 receiving touchdowns, 143 yards on the ground. Huge game for the Rams rushing attack and Williams in particular.
Yeah, monster game for him. I mean, even Royce Freeman had a decent game as well. It's like the change of pace back.
Rams' run game has been sneaky good this year.
Yeah, and
At
I mean,
times.
this
Sneaky
game,
good at times.
like Arizona just couldn't stop anything. Their defense. The defense that looked like one of the worst defenses in NFL history on paper heading into the year played like it in this game. I mean, they got wrecked across the board. Started off, Stafford had a dime to Tutu Atwell really early. The run game took over. They had their way. I mean, the Cardinals' defense just didn't hold up.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Cardinals is, every couple of weeks it's like, all right, they're playing hard. They're going to be they're competitive, especially, Kyler Murray is going to keep them in more games. And then every now and again they have a game where you are reminded that coming into the season, the Cardinals were the favorite to have the number 1 overall pick by a wide margin.
Yeah.
This was one of those games.
Yeah, they didn't have much going for them. And an offense, might have been able to do a little bit more. They had some sort of bad mistakes in there. Did you see the incredible Greg Dortch was that a touchdown, right?
Yeah, one-handed back shoulder grab in the end zone.
That was literally like a full Randy Moss play, where with one hand he's like holding off the guy, and then with the other hand he's just catching it in the back shoulder. Only Randy Moss is 6'4" or whatever he is, and 210 pounds.
Yeah.
Greg Dortch is a tiny human being who then gives the too small celebration at the end of it to a guy who is like 6 inches taller than him.
Greg Dortch is one of those guys, kind of like Richie James, who is now with the Chiefs and had a nice season with the Giants. It's just like every time I watch him, it's like I wonder what would happen if he was a high-volume receiver. Because good things happen when Greg Dortch touches the football.
Greg Dortch is 5'7" and 175 pounds, and gave the "you're too small" celebration to a guy who is significantly smaller than that, or significantly taller than that,
which is fantastic. So yeah,
to his credit, though, the guy covering him, I think, was Trey Tomlinson, who's
also small.
Yeah, though not as small as Greg Dortch.
So Tomlinson got Moss there and had a negated interception because, he interfered before he picked it off. What do you do when you interfered and then you pick it off and Tomlinson kind of took it to the house? Like at some point you got to be like, wait, they're going to call this back, right? save the 60 yards? Or do you say, I've got NGS speed here,
No.
I could try to hit 22 miles an hour?
No,
Like,
I'm not
what's the
interested
thought
in the
process?
speed. I'm taking it back just in case, but I'm jogging. Like I'm not.
Okay. See, I would want, the highest NGS speeds are everybody who runs at least 50 yards on a play, right? So you have that opportunity to run as fast as you can for 50 yards, and you have a chance to be one of the highest speeds of the week for Trey Tomlinson.
No, I'm not interested in that.
That's very important stuff here. So the Rams run game was dominant. Kyron Williams had an historic game, one of those like first guy with 2 receiving touchdowns, over 50 receiving yards, over 150 rushing yards since probably like Priest Holmes or something like that. I don't know what it was, but it was something since 2000, which is really impressive. Kyron Williams is having a nice season for the Rams. If other things, man, I'll tell you what, in a second. Colby Turner also had 2 really nice sacks for the Rams, the rookie defensive tackle. That's good for your expansion team, okay, because he's on your team. I'll tell you what was a big situation this year, just to highlight it one more time. When the Rams threw the Philly special to Matthew Stafford and the busted thumb, if that play forced Matthew Stafford to miss the next game against Green Bay when Brett Rippon had to start and then got cut on Tuesday, I don't know if that play put it over the top or if Stafford's thumb was busted enough, but the Rams lost to the Packers. They're both 5-6. The Packers have the tiebreaker now. They're battling for this last playoff spot. That could be one, like the Philly special in a beatdown against Dallas could be one of the most important plays of the season for the Rams if they care about getting into the playoffs right now. Because they would have had a chance to beat. Like that. Remember how ugly that game was against Green Bay and how bad it was with Brett Rippon?
Yeah.
If Matthew Stafford was playing, they have a much better chance of winning.
Or if they'd signed Carson Wentz a week earlier.
That too. Did Wentz take some snaps? I saw him put his helmet on. I don't know. It's like I stopped watching the game at that point. Look, I can't watch every single snap, everybody. I saw Wentz put his helmet on, get ready to go.
No, that's as far as that went.
Oh, well, it was exciting. It could have been a Ram.
I'm sure it was a big moment for Carson. You know? He did. He played snaps, but they must have been kneels or handoffs. He just didn't drop back. 3 snaps. What were they? Let's find out.
No kneels. He didn't kill his rushing yardage.
So just good. 3 handoffs.
Good job, Carson. Rams legend, Carson Wentz. All right, Rams move to 5-6. Cardinals 2-10, looking like the 3rd overall pick right now. They fall behind New England, who's also 2-10. Is that right? I think New England's got the tiebreaker for being bad at the moment. Arizona's. Does Arizona have the? Because Arizona should have the number 2 pick right now. I saw the update before the Force.
Easy to find out. They do. They are number 2.
Yeah, so Arizona's got number 2.
Carolina, Arizona, New England.
New England
Chicago.
I hate when they update it like in between the 1s and the 4s. You know, like during the Chiefs game yesterday, it's like, hey, the Jags are the number 1 seed right now. It's like, well, the Chiefs are about to win, and they won't be. So anyway, let's go to the Broncos 29, Browns 12. Broncos move to 6-5. Browns fall to 7-4. Kind of an ugly game here, both ways. Defensive battle early on, and Broncos pulled away. Still looking good, man. The Broncos 6-5 now.
Yeah. And so you mentioned before, one of the funniest things that could happen is, Dallas playing Atlanta in the playoffs and stomping them because Dallas beats not great teams and yada, yada. Now, I think the single funniest thing that can happen in terms of playoff scenarios is Denver making the playoffs after giving up 70 points earlier in the season, replaying Miami in the playoffs, and then with their newfound defensive prowess, just shutting them down completely and winning.
Okay. Like, just don't give up any points, and they averaged 35. They gave up against Miami.
Just like yeah, right, shutting them out
1-1,
and then going averaging a 35-point loss.
That'd be good.
That would be spectacular, I think. And honestly, they're playing that way right now. Like Denver has a shot at the postseason. We mentioned earlier as well, at the exact same time as Philadelphia appears to be getting unstoppable at the push play, everybody else is just botching 3rd and 4th and short. The Browns botched one of these 4th and inches plays. For some reason, Harrison Bryant was under center, fumbles the snap.
Yeah.
It's like, why? I don't understand why this is so hard for everybody else. I understand maybe why you're not executing the push play as well as Philadelphia, but why are you just failing at routine, normal sneaks? Why are we even putting other players under center?
That one scares me. Like, the Chiefs do that a lot, and overall, it's
they do it because Mahomes got hurt one time.
Yeah. So a couple things in this game. First off, Russ once again has another one of the Russ plays, Adam Troutman touchdown, which I thought they were going to overturn. His knee was like barely in.
Well, they had to review it to get it to
not overturn, but I didn't think they were going to let it stand as a touchdown. But he was barely in before he slid out of bounds. I mean, the touchdowns that Russell Wilson has thrown over the last 2 to 3 weeks that are just inches away from being out of bounds. Cortland Sutton on Monday Night Football, this one to Troutman. I mean, just kind of old school Russell Wilson. So that helped seal the deal for Denver. We have Baron Browning with a roughing the passer call on DTR that knocked him out of the game.
What did you think of that call?
I thought it was a bad call.
Yeah.
Because he just hit him hard. That is the issue that I have is sometimes you just hit a guy so hard that they have to call it.
No, well,
they feel like they have to call it. They're inclined to call it. I thought it was just a good, clean hit. I hate that DTR got hurt.
Yeah.
At the same time, the quarterback. So here we go. The comment that Tom Brady made that kind of went viral about it's bad football right now.
Yeah.
He's not saying this as like curmudgeony old guy who's been out of the league, 100 days and is like, oh man, back in my day things were better. He said this when he was still playing.
He did.
And what Brady was trying to say is, because the rules have changed, people are playing the game differently. And I'll give you 3 examples, right, that I think he's saying, right? It's throwing guys into coverage to get popped. It's the late slide, right? I hate that us as a society have been trained that when a quarterback slides, if there's any kind of contact by the defender, the poor guy is running as fast as he can, needs to tackle the quarterback, slides last second. You try to avoid him, and it's like, that's a penalty. You hit his knee, touched his shoulder, who slid, it's a penalty. Like, we've been trained to think that. And then the third one is the quarterback, who the league is making all of these changes to protect. And the quarterback's just like, I'm just going to run around. Do whatever I want. I'm just going to run around. Who cares? Yeah, here we go. And they get hit late because it's their own fault, because they extended a play for 12 seconds. That was DTR on this play. Or quarterbacks on several plays. It's like you're using the rules to your advantage, inducing this late hit, and if you induce it late enough, you're going to get a penalty. You also might get hurt. But, those are the 3 things. So it's like it's just bad football is what Brady was trying to say. And I think this is an example of one of those, where Baron Browning just has a very good hit that happened to hurt the quarterback, and he gets a penalty because of it.
Yeah. I do think it was like people always make that point with any hit that like, he just hit him too hard. This was one where I think it's genuinely the correct description. Like, he just hit DTR hard enough that it didn't even look that bad. They just decided that it was that bad, that it was an egregious. He went slightly high, and because he hit him so hard, there was probably some incidental helmet-to-helmet contact. But this is a different world from the Kareem Jackson hits that have happened all the way through the season. I don't think it should have been a penalty at all, but it knocked DTR from the game, who had been playing pretty well. PJ comes in, doesn't play well, and that was pretty much all she wrote from a Cleveland Browns point of view.
Yeah, and that's a good summation. We can wrap it up there. I mean, like
a couple other things.
Yeah, not wrap it up, but like we have to talk about Myles Garrett's injury and whatever else you got here.
Yeah, Garrett hurts his shoulder. According to him, he heard a pop in his shoulder, so that may well be his Defensive Player of the Year candidacy up in smoke, which would be really unfortunate because he was playing insanely well this year.
Yeah, that seems not good.
That Cortland Sutton drops a touchdown in the back of the end zone. Actually, ironically, got both feet down perfectly, and it just went right through his hands. Like, maybe ball could have been 6 inches lower, and he wouldn't have had to stretch that, but it hit him in the hands. And I was actually surprised, given A, Cortland Sutton, and B, tacky gloves, that it actually made it through his hands. Like, it hit him fairly solidly in the hands and somehow went straight through them. Usually the tack on modern gloves just doesn't allow that to happen. So that was pretty shocking. The Browns ran a play fake, like a play-action play, out of a legitimate wing T formation, which was one of the best plays I saw this week.
I appreciate the fact that they have, with DTR as a late-round rookie, that they are trying to get creative. I mean, they had, their touchdown came on a 4th and 1. DTR,
that was the play. They ran.
Yeah.
That formation was a legitimate wing T. Like you hear that all the time of teams that are like run heavy or run options, whatever. It's like they're just running the old wing T, and they're not. Right? The wing T is like a specific They ran the wing T
legit
formation, and then play action touchdown to Harrison Bryant again. I think.
Yes, I love the creativity. You have to do that. I think you have to do that when you have, quarterback issues. DTR a little sporadic accuracy-wise. Some of his good throws didn't get caught, but, up and down game for the rookie before getting injured. And then, as you mentioned, P.J. Walker, 2 turnover-worthy plays and 17 dropbacks. Not great. We'll keep an eye on Garrett. The Broncos, Samaje Perine ran really well for the Broncos.
P.J. Locke had a great game as well.
He's flying around making plays.
In for Kareem Jackson.
There you go. Yeah, they played fine without Kareem Jackson, and with him too. But we'll keep an eye on Garrett and what this injury looks like. Playoff picture for both teams. The Cleveland Browns currently tied with the Steelers at 7-4. Steelers would be the 5 seed, Browns the 6. Broncos the 9 seed, tied at 6-5 with the Colts and the Texans, but third in the tiebreaker as of right now. They're also all ahead of the 6-6 Buffalo Bills, who would be the 10 seed, and it would not be in the playoffs in the AFC right now.
Nick Bonito with a huge game. 8 total pressures.
Good job, Nick. All right, let's go. That's 2 of them done in the 4th. Nice job. Kansas City Chiefs 31, Las Vegas Raiders 17. Chiefs moved to 8-3, coming off their Monday night loss to the Eagles, bounced back well, and the Raiders fall to 5-7. Raiders got up early, man. Great first drive. Aiden O'Connell converts 3 first downs on 3rd down. Josh Jacobs with a 63-yard touchdown run. The Raiders were up 14-0, and it should have been more. They missed a 30-yard field goal in there as well on a 4th and 1 that they probably should have gone for it. And so there was a real world where the Raiders were up 3 scores. Didn't matter though because the Chiefs, better team and came back pretty well. But Raiders made it a game early.
Yeah, O'Connell played really well, I thought. As you said, should have been up more. There was some crazy stat about like the number of times Mahomes has been down like 2 scores in recent years, and this was one of like not very many. So they had Kansas City in a hole.
They also win most of those games when they're down 10. Not as much as Jalen Hurts down 10.
Well, they just win most of their games, period. So
yeah, true.
There's no scenario you can put them in that they don't win most of their games. Yeah, O'Connell played really well, had an absolute dime to Jacoby Myers down the sideline, like a slot fade route, I think. But one of the big things that helped Kansas City come back was Rashee Rice being their receiver. Like, they, I think, have found the guy that should be, the secondary target to Travis Kelce, and it is Rashee Rice. And, as seems to be the case with Rashee Rice, there's a drop in there as well. But 8 catches from 10 targets, 107 yards, a big run after the catch touchdown, which is what he might be best at of all his skill sets. Like, he's their guy that they need to lean on now. And remember might have been last week, we were like, look, he's clearly their best option. There is no reason any other wide receiver should be getting more snaps than Rashee Rice. Well, this game, no other wide receiver did get more snaps than Rashee Rice. So that part is working.
Yeah, the 39-yard shallow cross on 3rd down. Rashee Rice just outruns the defense. Great play there. He has been fantastic after the catch. I agree. I mean, that's the guy they should be going to. Travis Kelce had a few slow weeks. He had a nice game. Mahomes hit him on a really nice crosser for 27 yards. It's just still fascinating seeing this Kansas City offense. They were effective in this one without – like Max Crosby was doubtful for this game. He was the first player who was doubtful to actually be active and then play. He had a sack, which came after Mahomes held the ball forever.
And they had to drag him off the field.
Yeah.
Like, he was pissed off because they were, like, wanting him to come to the sideline and, like, take a rest at some point.
First off, they were doubling him, and he just wasn't effective, right? So that was his only pressure, the sack.
Right.
And without Max Crosby, the Raiders, Malcolm Koonce has had a pretty nice season, but they don't get much pressure. So for Kansas City, quick hitting, passing attack, like after a slow start, they pretty much weren't stopped offensively. And then the Raiders had to, there was some game management snafus in there for the Raiders, including they don't go for the 4th and 1. They probably got into that, hey, we'll get up 10. Yeah, we'll just get up 10 on the Chiefs, when early in the game, all you're trying to do is maximize points. You're not trying to get up 2 scores. You have to maximize points. And it's 4th and 1. They miss a 30-yard field goal by Daniel Carlson. Hashtag take the points. But he missed. And they should have kept their foot on the gas. And even after that, they were still up 14-0 at one point. And they also had the Josh Jacobs running game looking pretty good, grabbing your 3, 4, 5 yards a pop, broke the 63-yarder. They were doing all the things to kind of keep Kansas City off the field. O'Connell played well, as you said, but Chiefs defense cracked down after that slow start, and Mahomes and the Chiefs moved the ball like they normally do. So
yeah, one of the elements of this Kansas City defense, so it's really good generally, but they, I think, have also been unusually good at dialing up the right play in really high leverage situations. I think that's one of Spag's biggest strengths, like defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. He manages to dial up plays right when they need them, and they're so good in these situations. There was a play like 4 or 5 minutes into the fourth quarter where the Raiders are only down 11 at this point. They've got 3rd and 10, and it ends up being the sort of the summation of the play in the game book or whatever would be batted pass by Trent McDuffie, right? And that's the 3rd down gone and blah, blah, blah. But when you watch the way this play actually unfolds pre-snap, it's fascinating. Like the Chiefs are set up so that they have all the bodies on the left side of the defense. Josh Jacobs is on that side of the offense ready to sort of pick up a blitz. Then before the snap, 2 guys flip to the other side, right? Justin Reed is one of them, and Drew Tranquil, I think, is the other, the linebacker. Reed just bounces all the way to the other side in the A-gap and threatens blitz, and Tranquil starts moving to that side and ends up dropping out of the look entirely and dropping into coverage. Justin Reed wins so quickly into the A-gap because of the way the defensive lines are positioned. Jacobs can't really get to him or well, it's not even Jacobs, but the other running back can't even get to him properly and stop him making the play. And then Trent McDuffie has a clear run through to bat the ball away and stop it being anything from his position in the slot. Just such a creative chess match before the snap in this high leverage 3rd and 10 gotta have it situation that ends up being a complete win for the Chiefs defense and a play that the Raiders desperately needed and had no shot at.
Feels like Spags is doing that pretty often this year. I think he's had a good year dialing it up at the right time. Combination of them playing well up front, but also him calling a good game for that Chiefs defense. The Chiefs are back in control of the number 1 seed, and they don't play a team with a winning record for the rest of the year. In part because they play Cincinnati with Jake Browning, and they play the Bills, who are now 6-6, don't have a winning record. So, Philadelphia Eagles 37, Buffalo Bills 34. What a crazy game. Eagles move to 10-1. They do it again during this grind of a schedule.
Let's do the other game first. Let's wrap with the good game.
Okay, you want to do Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, get rid of Sunday Night Football.
All right.
And then we can spend the next hour and a half talking about the Bills.
I have a meeting at 9:30.
Whatever.
Baltimore Ravens 20, Los Angeles Chargers 10. Ravens 20, Chargers 10, if you need a better transition here. Ravens moved to 9-3. I guess they're technically the number 1 seed. They've played more games, but they hit into their bye here with a 9-3 record. Chargers fall to 4-7. Chargers had an opportunity to come back. I feel like the 4th down, gotta have it plays for the Chargers this season. It's just like, oh, look, we forgot to block somebody. We've got no chance. And so they had no chance. Ravens were running out the clock. The end around to Zay Flowers goes 37 yards to put him up 2 scores. Some people would say he should have gone down. Fantasy owners would say, no, give me the points. But that was what put them up 2 scores.
Yeah.
For the cover, by the way.
It was.
Oh, do you know Harry? I mean, we can also talk about Linfield shut out North Reading.
Yeah.
So you got
I win that one.
You got that game.
Man City and Liverpool drew, so neither of us get a win.
So we both
there.
lose.
Yeah.
But where's the Harry had 12 wins this week.
Great.
He was 12-3 so far.
So we're just getting wrecked by your child, is what you're telling us.
He had a good. I mean, this was He had a really good week. He was very excited. He has picks printed out. He's like, Daddy, why did you guys pick that team? You're stupid.
Yeah.
And he picked the right team. We had the right, a couple times.
Excellent.
So anyway, let's talk about Sunday Night Football.
Okay.
How many turnovers did the Chargers have? 4?
So this game started off with the Chargers getting hosed by the officials a couple of times. They missed that late hit on, how can you even say they missed it? They didn't call a late hit on Justin Herbert out of bounds when Geno Stone cracks him, despite him being clearly out of bounds. I do think that the NFL seems to be relaxing those late hits out of bounds. There's been a lot of calls this year where you're like, I mean, that gets called in previous seasons. And now
that's another one. That's another one where the quarterback is trying to draw that, right? The idea of calling a late hit and in calling roughing the passer is to protect the quarterback. And quarterbacks are like, let me get every inch I can and make it look like I'm on the field, but I'm really off the field. They're trying to draw those penalties. I'm not saying Herbert in this situation. I'm just saying quarterbacks generally are trying to exploit that rule just like they're trying to slide late, and that's obnoxious. Carry on.
Anytime they have been not calling these late hits out of bounds, the rules analyst on each broadcast has been in pains to sort of draw it up and be like, well, technically this foot hasn't come down yet, so he's not actually out of the field of play, and this is still legit if the hit, like, they've sort of, it's like they have a company line, you know what I mean? So it feels like this has been one of these sort of points of emphasis in a quiet room somewhere.
Yeah.
This one I don't think fits that category because it was definitively, he was out of bounds, and it was a late hit. They didn't call it. They missed a really bad fair catch interference thing as well. That's like 30 yards of penalties that both went Baltimore's way in the first quarter that the Chargers didn't get. But outside of that, I mean, the Chargers weren't making enough plays. The Ravens were. Kyle Hamilton was making some insane plays. Anytime the Chargers are trying to do anything, wide receiver screeny or like a sweep behind the line that involves those perimeter players blocking, Hamilton wasn't just shutting it down. He was beating a block to then shut it down.
Yeah.
Like he was beating the screen blocker to then kill the guy in the backfield. Just incredible plays by him.
Tirico and the broadcast did a good job of highlighting what Kyle Hamilton was doing, because on one play he'd blow up a screen, on the next play he'd be running with Jalen Guyton, who's pretty fast, be running with receivers down the field out of the slot. A lot of times when we say this guy is going to play in the slot, we talk about the dudes who are 5'9", 5'10", shiftier. Well, Hamilton's 6'4", rangy. He's got good zone range. He's good against screens, and he can man up against tight ends. He can man up against slot receivers. He's an awesome blitzer as well, in part because of the range and the length and everything. So love the way the Ravens are using Kyle Hamilton. He's playing real well this year. But he ran a 4.6 40, so the NFL dropped him in the draft. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, he is playing spectacularly right now, and it is worth remembering that before, the 4.6 40 and everything, we were asking the question of, is he so good at safety that you change the rules of how high you draft that guy? Like, should he be the number 3 overall pick?
I also thought because of the way he plays free safety, that's where he was going to be.
Right.
That's the other thing that's interesting to me is a guy like Hamilton, who I would probably just make into a center field free safety, or guy that plays deep, plays a Marcus Williams role in this defense. The Ravens said, no, we're going to do it differently and have success with it. So, I mean, Hamilton can move around, but he could also just play free safety and be really good as well, I think. So,
yeah, he's playing amazingly right now.
What are you laughing at?
Nothing. I mean, he was a big part of that win. Justin Tucker miss short field goal with like 2.5 minutes left. That's not supposed to happen.
It's another interesting one. The late Eric Eager always would talk about, once a weekend he tweets out his article, never kick a field goal to go up 6. And, for Harbaugh and the Ravens, who make a lot of good decisions overall, they opted to kick the field. They gave up a 4th and 1 to kick a field goal. What was it, 43? 40-something? What'd you say it was?
I didn't, but it was reasonably short.
Yeah, I mean, even you're expecting Justin Tucker to hit it.
Correct.
The decision, though, is do you actually want to go up 6 with about 2-something left, because when you give the offense a chance, when you give the ball to the offense, if they know they're going to score a touchdown, you're immediately giving them 25% more downs once they get into field goal range. 44-yarder by Justin Tucker. So that's part of the decision. Plus, you're the Ravens, and picking up 4th and 1 when you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. We saw that when they were running out the clock. They did a great job running out the clock at the end of the game. Lamar with 2 carries. Then they get Zay on the edge, and he takes it 37 for a score. You have these built-in advantages running the ball on 4th and 1. So they tried to go up 6, missed it. They were still up only 3. I mean, they still won it, obviously, and shut down the Chargers' comeback attempt. But kind of a risky decision trying to kick a field goal and hashtag taking the points.
Yeah. The chat is perturbed that you said Eric died. Just
Eric Eager is alive.
And well.
Doing great.
We refer to anybody that left PFF.
If you use the context, so the context of what I said the late Eric Eager tweets this thing every weekend. So the context there is he's still alive and able to tweet.
Well, you could just be bad at English. And
we always say the late. He's late of PFF. I
understand that, but evidently the chat didn't.
Oh, if you're new to the chat, anybody who's left PFF, of which there's a bunch in the last year, Mike Renner and Austin Gale and Eric Eager.
Brian Linehan in the chat brings up an interesting double standard. Why do we not refer to PFF Bobby as the late Bobby Slowick?
I think if you move on to the NFL, it's promotion. If you take a lateral move to other companies like The Ringer,
got it,
you know, or Spotify, you know, lateral move like that, you're dead.
Okay.
If you move up to the NFL, like Bobby and Zach, it's like, oh, look at those guys.
Right.
They're on their way
so
to
the
NFL
coach. Is the only suitable.
That's correct.
It's the only way you avoid death after leaving the building.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Anything else here?
So, what do you make of the Justin Herbert situation generally? Because he's had this weird season where he's been let down by other people quite a lot. He's also not played at the level you would have wanted or expected Justin Herbert to play at. So, you know, like his numbers in this game are going to be pretty atrocious, right? 5.1 yards per attempt, whatever that is, pass rating of like 76. And people are all being like,
Hail Mary interception.
Justin Herbert's not good.
Yeah, I don't care what people say.
No.
I mean, I think...
Okay. And they scored 10 points. I mean, that's the other element here.
Yeah. There's definitely this element of I would rather see Herbert play better in those crunch time situations overall. I also look at the playmaker situation. And I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not a huge Zay Flowers fan, but I get it, right? Like, I get Zay Flowers, especially in this Ravens offense, especially in a Chiefs offense. And I would get Zay Flowers adding some level of speed and big playability for this Chargers offense. But they chose Quentin Johnston, right? And they relied upon Mike Williams coming into the season, who gets hurt a lot. And so Keenan Allen is awesome, and he's great. He has 14 catches at about 7.5 a pop because they keep throwing him bubbles. And they just don't have enough playmakers here to throw the ball down the field. Like, if you're going to maximize Herbert, and I thought, like, on paper, it's like, okay, if Mike Williams stays healthy, I could see how it might work. But once you lose Mike Williams and all of a sudden it's Keenan Allen, you know, as an extended run game, who's going to have success there? I don't think anybody's going to have success there. So, yeah, I mean, the Chargers, they're just off right now, man. The defense played well in this game. Their defense played well. Of all the games overall, they played pretty well.
Yeah, outside of a couple of plays.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few bad plays in there, of course. Whatever you want to say about the 37-yard, but they should have only given up 13 points, realistically. Zay Flowers was wide open for a touchdown. He had the 37-yard run, but the defense, relative to what they'd played the rest of the year, was pretty good, and the offense let them down. But it's a very good Ravens defense, and I don't like the pass game situation, what they have to throw to.
The Ravens are allowing like a historically good or historically low yards per pass play rate this season. Like, their pass defense has been insane.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the best ever.
I'll tell you,
just this season.
It's really weird. Let's wrap it up with this. We've gotten Chiefs, Bills every year, and a couple playoff games. We've gotten Chiefs, Bengals. We haven't seen the Chiefs, Ravens play in like 3 years now, right? When was the last time they played? 2021, maybe? Sometime early in 2021.
They finally got over the hump after like years of being like, this is the offense that should beat the Chiefs.
We haven't seen Ravens-Chiefs in the playoffs, and we haven't seen it in the regular season in quite a while. That's going to be an interesting, potential AFC championship, divisional, wherever it ends up landing. That's going to be an interesting matchup. Because this Ravens defense going up against the Chiefs, the way the Chiefs defense is playing, the fact that the Ravens, their offense has, downhill attack, change of pace, speed, Lamar, pass game options now. Still losing Mark Andrews, I think, is going to hurt, but that's going to be an interesting matchup if we get there.
Yeah.
Ravens move to 9-3.
But Isaiah Likely had a nice game. It's going to be a different role as a tight end in that offense, but Isaiah Likely, I think, showed that he can be a big part of it as well. Odell Beckham told the broadcast that he was dealing with, he termed it the worst sprain that you can have in his shoulder. Remember, he left the game last week almost exactly the same time as Mark Andrews goes down. OBJ starts showing like he can be a guy again. He then gets this shoulder injury. He told Sunday Night Football that it was the worst sprain you can get. Now, if that means it's a grade 3 sprain, that's like a pretty catastrophic shoulder injury for a guy that seems to be wanting to go out there and try and play through it all the way through the year and like didn't back up that game with another big game. Like maybe that could be a real problem, but Likely showed that he can make plays. So the Ravens pass defense right now is giving up 5.5 yards per attempt. The 49ers are the second best pass defense in the NFL, and they're giving up 6.2. And like the gap between, that's the biggest gap anywhere down the line, right, is first to second. Second to third is 0.1 yards. Third to fourth is 0.01 yards. Like those guys are all tightly bunched, and then there's a giant gap to the Ravens, who are giving up a historically low pass yards per attempt figure this year.
Yeah, they've been impressive. And they were again on Sunday Night Football. 9-3, Ravens, Chargers. It's getting rough for them, 4-7. But they got New England next week, so favored by about a touchdown or so. All right, let's wrap it up with the 4 o'clock game, not Sunday Night Football. Philadelphia Eagles 37, Buffalo Bills 34. Eagles move to 10-1. Bills fall to 6-6. An overtime win here for the Eagles.
Yeah, brutal loss for the Buffalo Bills, who have put themselves in this hole where they're, struggling for playoff contention. They have this awful schedule that they're in the middle of right now, and this was a game that they should have won. They had the winning of the game. They were the better team for most of it. They had chances to win it multiple times, and they didn't. Lost the game. Now they're in a real hole.
There was so much stuff that happened in this game.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things. So early on, one of Josh Allen's best throws, James Cook drops it up the sideline. Eagles were up 7-0 early, right? And it felt early like the Eagles might run away with it, but the Eagles haven't run away with anything this year. They play tight games and then just pull them all out, no matter what. Overtime against Washington, Kansas City on Monday Night Football, doesn't matter. Hold off the Cowboys, red zone run a couple weeks back, and they did the same thing in this Bills game. But the Bills battled back. There's a batted pass for an interception. Bills get the ball. Josh Allen is playing like old school Josh Allen. Like if I was to describe what's different with Joe Brady calling plays, it's like, all right, Josh Allen's running the ball more.
Yeah, they went right back to that in a big way this game. Like they were designed runs. They were letting him carry the ball early. I don't know if this was hey, it's Joe Brady, not Ken Dorsey now, or if this is one of those games. Like generally we want to dial this back for you, but this is one of those games where we need you to be 100% of Josh Allen. You're going to have to carry this.
So Josh Allen ends up with 9 carries for 81 yards, 2 scores. One of those, the 19-yard touchdown, was just out of this world, right? I mean, because there was a lot of times it's 3rd and long, and so the Eagles blitzed, and he just weaves and outruns everybody and cuts back, and it's just like, all right, Josh Allen's going to take over this game. And he was playing spectacular for most of it, but he also had the one big mistake as well and misread, cover 2 trap type coverage where he just misread James Bradbury. He just keeps throwing the ball to cover 2 corners. They get caught every time he does it. There's got away with that one. That doesn't happen with Josh Allen this year. So he makes a bad read, bad throw, great play by James Bradbury. That got the Eagles back in the game because they were Bills were up 3 at that point. So that was a key play. The other thing that stood out to me that was interesting was, yes, it was a Josh Allen game. So he had 51 passing attempts and 9 carries. Yeah. So the Bills had 40 carries and 51 passing attempts. So they ran a lot of plays, Sam. Mm-hmm. It did go to overtime and all that. Their running backs, there was a point in the game in the fourth quarter, right? They were talking about, we got to have some bad runs in the first quarter. They'll become big runs in the fourth quarter. And it kind of happened. The Bills had one drive where their running backs had 7 carries for 47 yards. It's a pretty good drive. But other than that, the running backs had 24 carries for 45 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. The running backs also, they tried to get them involved. James Cook and Latavius Murray, they had one good drive running the ball, the running backs themselves, and everything else was shut down, including in overtime. They kept trying to run it, and Jordan Davis had a ridiculously good overtime. Just kept shutting down the run by himself for the Eagles. It was unbelievable, Jordan Davis. So there's just, I don't know. That stood out to me as well. As much as we put the ball into Josh Allen's hands, if you're the Bills, they also kept trying to grind it out. And so there's a lot of just bad plays in there for the Bills. Maybe that helped because the Eagles didn't have a great pass rush in this game. Maybe it did slow that down. But the running attack for the Bills in a situation where they would want to run the clock and everything, just not great.
Yeah, though I did think they had that one nice sort of clock-eating touchdown drive to take it to 2 minutes left in the game-ish.
Sorry, that was the one where the running game was great, and it looked like, hey, they wore down the Eagles. The running game's going to take over now, and they had that one drive where it worked, and then they tried it in overtime as well, and it didn't work. Yeah, and that drive could and maybe should have been the one to win this game. Other elements of this game, horrible, ugly, wet conditions that didn't actually affect the game that much. This is the sort of conditions that you would happily have sort of said to another game, well, throw it out, right? Bad game, sloppy conditions. Yeah, you would. And then both these teams didn't affect them much, if at all, in the game. There was this horrible intentional grounding call on Josh Allen where people wanted a horse collar. Maybe not. I mean, I would have probably called it, but he's bringing him down by the front and then reaches and grabs him at the back as well and takes him down with both hands. Use both, yeah.
Yeah, like the officials in the sort of, hey, why did you make this call, explained that essentially they determined that most of the force was at the front, so they didn't pull him down by the hand in the back of his pad, so therefore it's not a horse collar. Fair enough, whatever. I think you can go either way on the horse collar part. But they called intentional grounding on it when there's a guy, it landed like a yard away from a receiver. How is that intentional grounding?
The late Mike Renner, as I started tweeting about this, is like, oh, it's intentional grounding police, Steve again. Yeah. Because these calls do frustrate me a little bit. And then somebody responded to me and said, Josh Allen said after the game he was lobbying for an intentional grounding. I don't know why. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm trying to find, where's the play? I got to find the play. Anyway, intentional grounding should not be, we shouldn't hold our breath to see if there's intentional grounding. The whole point of intentional grounding is it's clear and obvious. You're trying to avoid a sack and you throw the ball to nobody. And there's no other circumstances in there. Because Herbert had one last night too, where he's being tackled, right? And I've also seen this called inconsistently too, and I've also been on calls with Dean Blandino explaining it doesn't matter if you're getting hit while throwing, it's about where the ball goes. We don't try to make that judgment call. Right. This year I've heard them say, well, that he was getting hit while throwing, you can't affect it. Justin Herbert's in the grasp, tries to throw it to a receiver, doesn't get there, right? You can see he's trying to throw it in the vicinity of a receiver, it didn't get there, so you can't call that grounding, but they did. And then the Allen one, there's a receiver right there. It doesn't matter if it goes to the line of scrimmage because they bury it on screens all the time too, behind the line of scrimmage. The line of scrimmage thing doesn't matter. It's just so inconsistent. We shouldn't hold our breath. It should be clear as day. Oh no, I'm about to get sacked. Let me throw the ball to nobody. Okay, that's grounding. This should be easy. And they're making it difficult, just like they're making us hold our breath every time a QB slides and there's like a little bit of contact. Oh, no, they're gonna call that? That's the part of the rules that a lot of people are struggling with.
Yeah. I mean, I think that whatever about the horse collar, I think that could have gone
timestamp on
either way. No. But I don't understand how you call that intentional grounding. I think that was a bad call. But then so this game was already really good. The Eagles had a couple of big sort of answered drives where they could have wilted and let the Bills run away with this game. They didn't. Every time that was an issue, they came back. Once they get the interception from Allen to James Bradbury, they have a touchdown after what was an awful series. They lost yardage, I think, on pretty much every play, and then Jalen Hurts scrambles out, finds Zacchaeus at the back of the end zone for a jump ball and scores a touchdown on what a drive that was going nowhere. Then the Bills have that huge clock-chewing drive to score, take it to 2 minutes. And then again, the Eagles are having a rough drive, back-to-back penalties by Jason Kelce, or 2 and 3 plays or whatever, false starts. And the second one was a huge one because it moves the ball back to now it's a 59-yard field goal attempt in the crappy conditions to win a game or to tie a game. And then Jake Elliott just nails one of the most ridiculous kicks of the season.
That was an incredible kick. I mean, the Eagles, we talked about how confusing they were in the preview too, because they have so many plays that don't make sense or that shouldn't work or whatever it is. And then they keep coming out of it. Jalen Hurts is just absolute nails when it comes to games on the line, crunch time. But again, what makes sense here? We're going to throw a jump. Who's going to get the jump ball? Who's going to get the screen on 3rd and long? So they had 2 3rd and long plays in the second half. A screen to Julio Jones, who's our age as well, and a jump ball to Zacchaeus in the end zone. You're supposed to flip those. Zacchaeus is supposed to be catching screens. Julio's supposed to be getting the jump balls.
Right.
Zacchaeus catches the jump ball on 3rd and 15. How tall is he? 5'9"? Great play. It's a great play. It worked. Hurts with the QB draw to win the whole thing. But, man, when the game is on the line and they need to make big plays, he found Devontae Smith several times over the middle, both in the fourth quarter comeback drive and in overtime. The other, not controversial, but very close play, A.J. Brown catches a ball in overtime and kind of takes 2 steps. It gets knocked away. It's pretty standard incompletion, I think, the way the NFL calls it. But it looked like it could have been a fumble.
Yeah, I mean, it was close.
In a game-ending fumble.
Yeah, it was close, particularly the way the league has sort of gone back in that direction of now you need less time than previously to secure the ball and for it to be a live fumble afterwards. It probably was still an incompletion, but had it gone the other way, it wouldn't have been an egregious call. Tim McManus had a tweet that Jake Elliott has never missed a game-tying or go-ahead field goal attempt in the final 2 minutes of regulation or in overtime in his career. He's 8 for 8.
So this is why when we were...
And this one, so not only was it 59 yards in the rain, blah, blah, blah. He had to... he faded it. It drove in left and low, and then the wind took it slowly to the right.
That was
and
Romo's
just snuck
best
inside
analysis.
the right.
That was Romo's best
because it was a golf shot.
Exactly, because it was a golf shot. He's he's got to start it. He's got to play the fade here. Great fade play. Thank you, John Macri from PFF here, giving me the timestamp. I did find the intentional grounding really quick. I mean, I wanted to confirm that Gabe Davis was really right there. He's right there.
Yeah, it's right.
There's an eligible
right
receiver right there. Just like on a screen pass, the running back's 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and you throw it at his feet, and it's not grounding. Just call it consistently. I don't even care about the horse collar part. I don't care about that. Call it a horse collar, whatever. But just come on, man.
I mean, I care about it insofar as, it was.
The crazy thing is the refs started talking, and we were all like, is it a sack? Is it a horse collar? They're like, nope.
Intentional grounding.
Intentional grounding.
It was like, what?
I forget what intentional grounding sign is. I'm sick of it. I don't even want to look at it. I just give a roughing the passer signal. Anyway.
So, I mean, that only gets you to overtime. The Bills kept converting these 3rd and long plays. They had, I think, 6, maybe 7 conversions on 3rd and 7 or longer in the game. kept managing to come up with it. Josh Allen then, having not gotten his horse collar, decides to take matters into his own hand and flops to get a rough in the passer.
Oh yeah, so
Allen's now developing quite a highlight reel of flops, by the way.
I hate that. So I would penalize the flop. The chat. We've come full circle here. The chat is I'm a Josh Allen sympathizer now.
No.
Apologist.
So now you're going to swing back and say, no, penalize him for flopping.
But I would say, so yes, flopping should be a penalty. That is absurd. That's my theme in complaining about the game or the officials in this 2.5-hour show. My theme is stop trying to exploit the rules, especially quarterbacks. Stop trying to exploit the rules. They're already in your favor. Stop trying to slide late to flop. Just stop doing that. Those should be penalized.
Allen is now, all joking aside, he's got 4 or 5 of these plays that are reasonably egregious flops that are in his career now that are drawing
they're
penalties.
15 yards and automatic first downs too. That's absurd. Those should be penalized the other way.
You can't be Josh Allen, right? You can't have these plays where on the one hand you're able to fight out of 3 or 4 tackles and drive guys over the line, and then at the same time when a linebacker who you outweigh comes in and pushes you slightly at the end of the play to then launch your head back and throw yourself at the floor. You can't do that. You can't be that same guy at 2 different times. You either are the first guy, in which case the flip side of that is you have to live with the fact that you're not going to get hits like this, or you have to be the guy that goes down on first contact at all times, in which case, cool, you might get a few more of these plays. On the other hand, you can't make the running plays you make.
Bryce Young can flop. He's allowed to flop.
Right.
Josh Allen.
Yes, Bryce Young. If Bryce Young goes down at the first sign of any contact ever, that's fine. Josh Allen can't do that because he's put on display too much tape of him driving through that kind of contact, not even being affected by linebackers bouncing into him. Can't have it.
The Josh Allen touchdown to Stephon Diggs was also just ludicrous.
Yeah. I had a bunch of crazy
down
plays.
And away in a spot where only he could catch it, landed right on the goal line. Incredible.
So then the flip side of the Jake Elliott never missing when it's crunch time, Josh Allen is now 0-6 in overtime in his NFL career. And just the 13 seconds play where Allen did his part, well, again, they drive down and then there's a miscommunication on that throw to Gabe Davis. Allen thinks he's going to keep going where he's going. Davis bends it outside and the ball ends up 5 yards off.
I don't know if it was a zero blitz, but it was pretty much all out, and it was one-on-one on the back end by the Eagles. We talked about how DeMeco Ryans did this a bunch of times and put the pressure on the opposing quarterbacks to be perfect. So that's what this was, right? Gabe Davis has one-on-one with Darius Slay. He's going to be by Darius Slay.
Yeah.
He can either keep it up the seam but instead he takes it to the corner. Allen throws the seam, and I love that. They were going for the game.
That's the win.
That's the way. I don't know
if they're on the same
Slay
page.
Still would have had a chance to maybe break it up. Probably would have needed to be a perfect throw, but they weren't on the same page. There was also a miscommunication on an RPO on that same drive. Those little things. Those are little things that the Bills are missing out on.
Right. If they're on the same page, that's probably a win. And I don't know what the other. I need to sort of figure out what the other 4 overtime ones were, what Allen did in those games. But Allen's going to go down now. He's going to get this thing of, man, can't win in overtime. At least 2 of those games, he's driven the ball down and had a shot at the touchdown that would have won it.
One was the Chiefs. He didn't have a chance to touch the ball. And one was the Bucs a couple years ago. He didn't touch the ball either because they both scored touchdowns.
Right.
So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So much credit to the Eagles, though. Because even when it looks ugly at times, their offense just seems to stall, and then they find the good plays, right? Like DeAndre Swift on the edge or whatever it might be. Swift had some big runs in this game.
Huge game by Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith was their guy when they needed him. Of course, Zacchaeus catching the 29-yard jump ball that makes no sense. And just Hurts is just unbelievable with the game on the line. There is something to he's undefeated now when they're down 10 at any point. Right, that they just stay the course, run the offense, and then it sounded like Kelsey and everybody knew that was going to be a game-winning touchdown, that they couldn't believe the Bills gave them the look that they gave.
Yeah.
They ran the draw. Hurts basically walks in for the game winner.
You watch that play from the sort of the high-level angle, and the Bills are just not – they're not playing that play. That's the one thing they can't play with that. They roll – they disguise the coverage. It looks like it's going to be – a shell coverage, dropping guys in, 2 safeties. They then roll late pre-snap to 1 safety and everybody crashing down on, I forget what they were faking, but something to the right, whether it was a screen or just an outside run to that direction. And then the one thing that completely exposes them to is quarterback draw to the left. So Hurts ends up running into the space that the backside safety is rolling away from. Like he's literally moving in the opposite direction of where he needs to be to defend Jalen Hurts. And that's the safety. Like that's the first player that's going to get to him is the backside safety, which means a minimum, even if they were preparing for that, it's already a 10-yard gain. Like just an absolutely disastrous meshing of defensive play call versus offensive play call.
Last thing I want to highlight here. Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter both had big games for the Eagles. Carter had a blocked field goal. Thank you to the chat for reminding me. I have a lot of notes that I haven't even gotten through today in this show. Jalen Carter had a blocked field goal. Jordan Davis, at 340 pounds, not only did he track down Josh Allen on a scramble to kind of hold him, 3 or 4 yards, impressive. Jordan Davis played 62 snaps, by far his career high. His career high was 44 back in week 6. He had 62 snaps, and as I mentioned in overtime, single-handedly stopped 3 runs by just blowing up guards and centers and stuffing the run and putting the Bills into second and third and long situations. So Jordan Davis, we talked a lot about his endurance, and he only played 25, 30 snaps a game at Georgia. He'd only done the same thing with the Eagles for most of his career. 62 snaps and still going strong in overtime. So shout out to Davis with a really nice game, especially in the crunch time there.
Yeah, another big thing before the game. So Lane Johnson doesn't play in this game. Apparently on Friday, he tweaked his groin or something, and then they were trying to get through it. They gave him an MRI on yesterday. He ends up not playing. Generally speaking, when Lane Johnson doesn't play and Jack Driscoll has to play at right tackle, it's a massive drop-off and usually a problematic area for Philadelphia. Von Miller did nothing against Jack Driscoll. That, I think, it's a concern for Buffalo that Von Miller, easing his way back, coming back from this injury, was not able to beat up on a bad player that he should have had a matchup advantage over. And from Philadelphia's point of view, it's a huge thing that spot did not cost them in a way that it usually does. And almost all of Miller's snaps were over Jack Driscoll. It's not like he just did nothing in the game, some of which came against Jack Driscoll. He played 22 snaps, 18 of which were over Jack Driscoll, and had 1 pressure in the game.
Yeah, it's a concern for the Bills. We have to wrap it up. But the Bills go to their bye at 6-6. Coming out of the bye, they're at Kansas City.
Yeah.
Home against the Cowboys.
They need a run now against good teams.
Yes. Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, Patriots, and then at Miami to finish the season.
This was why it was such a huge loss for them. Like, if they had gotten a win in this game,
right?
At minimum, it buys you another loss against another good team. But
it means the least because it's, the other conference, but it's in the middle of a stretch.
Right.
It's going to be tough to pull out wins. Meanwhile, the Eagles are in the middle of that stretch where they've beaten the Cowboys, then the Chiefs, then the Bills 3 straight. They're at home against the 49ers and then at Dallas these next couple weeks. So,
was I saying Jeff Driscoll instead of Jack Driscoll?
I think you said Jack.
Okay, good.
But you know the difference. All right, that's it. Monday Night Football. Enjoy Bears and Vikings. Thanks to everybody for tuning in here. Week 12 NFL review. We'll see you again tomorrow. You'll be reviewing Monday Night Football.